Greetings, humans. We are live at 7:01 on November 25th, the day before Thanksgiving, in this node of the multiverse. Tonight, I am here with my good friend Ashish Rastogi. Tonight, he's making his third appearance in the multiverse. Give it up for Ashish, everybody. He's an AI, robotics, and machine learning researcher turned full-blown ancient history obsessive, currently deep in the rabbit hole crafting his grand theory of everything about the pyramids. But tonight, he's putting the capstone aside to go nuclear on the AI apocalypse. Real existential risk or overblown Hollywood fever dream? We're crossing the technological event horizon and getting his raw, no filter predictions, the insane upsides we're barreling towards, and the nightmare scenarios nobody wants to say out loud. Chat, brace yourselves, say hi to Ashish, and let's get locked and loaded. The future starts right now. Ashish, what is up, my man?
Hey, thank you very much. Wow, impressive introduction. Thank you very much. Yeah. My background, just for people to know, is mostly in AI related to computer vision. And when I was doing AI research, I was applying computer vision techniques to automated systems, or I was attempting to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
and I'm just, in my opinion, just like everything else, there's a lot of distortion in AI. And it is a real thing, obviously, and it is just starting. People think that the apocalypse is coming, and all this. This is what they always think about tech. I hope I bring a little rationality without losing any of the allure or wonder that comes from it.
Yeah, and that's why we're having this conversation, because man, I went from a year ago barely using AI to now using it every single day. And it's, for example, okay, I have almost 20 years of basketball experience as a player and coaching in different environments and things like that. But like AI makes it, it's teaching me some stuff about basketball, just showing me some things I never saw before. But I'm using my own knowledge to have AI make practice plans and analysis of games and statistics like so easy. It's like I have a whole staff on hand, and it's just grok. It's ridiculous.
And
So it gets me thinking. It really is gets me wondering, like, are we barreling off a cliff right now? Because I feel like I am.
have you ever heard of Moneyball? You've maybe read the book,
Yes.
or yeah?
Yeah.
So
I've seen the movie, read the book. Yeah.
exactly. So that's sports is one of the most how do you say this word? Statified.
Yeah. Stat
Statified,
heavy.
stat heavy kind of sports. Sports is stat heavy in its like whole design. And
Hmm.
what Moneyball illustrates is that unusual or stats that you wouldn't really think of end up mattering a lot.
Hmm.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
Moneyball is kind of like what you would use AI for to do what they did over years in like a second.
I
And
know.
it can help you find lots of interesting interpretations, or it pulls out and filters data really well.
Yes.
Now, what the way that I like to think about LLMs is, I like to think about, so for those that don't know, an LLM is a large language model that's like your Chat GPT, your Gemini,
Hmm.
whatever, to take your
Hmm.
flavor of the month. The one of the things that it does really well is it's really good at pattern recognition.
Hmm.
And so, be applying AI to any kind of pattern recognition task, especially bulk pattern recognition tasks, this is going to be where AI just is instantly extremely valuable overnight.
Yeah,
Uh
and that's what I found, because for a guy like me who like has a squirrel problem, I get distracted easy, you know?
huh.
And so it's on I'm a smart guy, but I get distracted easy. And so it's honestly it feels like having a superpower.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
really does.
It's like having a little AI assistant on your shoulder is probably not that far away.
That's so wild. And we're going to get into a bunch of all that stuff. Like tonight we're going to talk about like have we crossed the tech event horizon? We're going to cover things like do we think our social structures can handle the weight of the new tech or do we need some new ones? We're going to ask some of these existential questions tonight. Ashish is going to get into some of the technicalities of in the history of AI, but he's going to try to make it accessible for us. And we're also going to starting right now, do a little promo of Quest for Ancient Civilization conference. Ashish lives in Scottsdale, right, or in
In
Phoenix?
Phoenix, yeah, which is Scottsdale's a suburb of Phoenix, or a borough of Phoenix.
Yeah, and so Ashish and I met at Cosmic Summit this last year, and then he wasn't going to be able to go to this because he was going to be in Thailand with Praveen,
Cambodia.
but he just got back, right?
Yeah, I just got back from Thailand with my round two with Praveen in
Uh
Thailand.
huh.
So
Uh
I'm a
huh.
bit jet lagged still, surprisingly, but yeah, I just did that a couple days ago. I'm going to go with him to Cambodia in March. I was supposed
Nice.
to go to Cambodia with him in December, but that didn't work out, so we're going postponing it to March.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely recommend watching the podcast I did with you on Thailand,
Yes.
and you'll see a little bit of what I'm talking about there.
Yeah.
Um, I think that AI has a lot to offer this world. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But just like with everything else, there's a lot of distortion. And I think what I want to do is I also want to just demonstrate that AI has tiers to it, tiers of advancement, and tiers of functionality. And I hope what we get to see in archaeology is more applications of AI. We're kind of seeing that with the Italian team. Um,
Uh-huh.
that's one incredible, valuable aspect of how AI can really change the game in archaeology and really get around a lot of the resistances that have been put up on exploring ancient sites. I think that we are also facing a deception campaign in archaeology, and one way of defeating that deception campaign is with truth. And if we can use AI to interpret results that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do, that would be a valuable thing. And I mean, like, I can't say definitively one way or the other whether their technique that they use, the SAR scans, works or does not work. But I can say that based off of the knowledge that I do have in AI, at least what they're saying is consistent, and and the results that they're presenting based off of the technique they're using and how they're describing using it, the description that they're using and the technique that they're using does match the results, and those results are kind of what you would expect based off of that description. And there is a math that does do that kind of signal processing, and so I am leaning towards believing them. And if that's the case, we should be applying that technique all over the world and then some.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's exciting. And so it's particularly exciting in the world of archaeology and lidar and stuff because you're gonna get into that later. But there's so many things that people are discovering even today where 20 years ago we thought they had found everything already,
Oh,
basically.
not at all.
I know. But let's just cover this quick. Is there any particular speaker? I know Graham just got added to the docket as a virtual speaker. Is there any particular speaker you're looking forward to seeing or meeting the most? I know Randall was the guy at Cosmic Summit. What about this one?
Yeah, I mean, now that you've announced Graham Hancock, I mean, how do you not want to meet him? But I mean, if I had to pick one that wasn't like the superstar of the series, for me personally, because I'm here in Phoenix, it's I think it's David Hatcher Childress, who I've
Mm-hmm.
just recently learned about. I didn't know about him before,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and he is really interesting to me because he's going to be talking about the Grand Canyon and the
Uh-huh.
Kincaid expedition. And so for me personally, if you've seen my previous podcast and what I've talked about on the Grand Canyon, that's super interesting to me.
Yeah,
Um,
and guys, go check out his. He did a live stream with us all about that. Please go check it out. And another, you talked about it twice with us now. So,
yeah, it's
and
also
on
in
other
the Thailand
places.
one. It's
Yeah,
in the Thailand one. Yeah.
yeah. And you're kind of working. You're putting a bunch of different things together. And you're kind of working. That's why I called it a sort of a grand unified theory of
Mm-hmm.
pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we should call it, because that's what we need when we're having all these different connections across space and
Oh
time.
yeah.
For me, I'm looking forward to Hugh Newman because he made an astronomical alignment connection at Karahan Tepe where they on the right day they just happened to be there where the sun went through this porthole or something and light lit up that face they just uncovered. And I want to hear all about that. Plus,
Yeah.
Hugh's been everywhere. It seems like he's been Egypt and Peru. He's all over the place. So, and I've
Yeah.
never actually met him in person. So that's the guy I'm looking forward to.
Neither am I. Neither have I. But we've got an all-star lineup here. I mean, everyone
Totally.
speaking there is going to provide something new that's going to be incredible. I mean, it seems like we can make new discoveries every day in this stuff because of how much there is out there. I mean, once you realize that these megalithic structures are so common, so frequent, and so like on every continent. I mean, everyone everywhere in the world has something in their backyard
Mm-hmm.
related to this topic that they could go
Yep.
explore and
Yep.
discover something new.
Yeah, it's amazing. To me, it's the most exciting time. And I have a lot of fun just talking to people like Raul of Pillars of the Past, and Aaron, my co-host of Breaking Ancient News, because these guys go to these places, and you now, because you're going to all these places too.
Yeah.
And I'm just pumped for you to come back from your next trip with Praveen, and then come back on the show, and because I'm sure you're tying all these things together, Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
Thailand, Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm really excited to hear about that. But before we get into this, we're not talking about ancient history today, at least not directly, because some of this shit is related.
Mm-hmm.
But first, I wanted to just do a quick little promo of what we got going on too here at the Multiverse. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, we dropped an episode. Is it Monday? It's Tuesday. Yeah, we dropped an episode yesterday with Crispin Thibodeau of the Stone Nub Language. This guy did something which should have been obvious from the get-go, but he classified what are we calling a nub and what are we not, so that it's not. Let me let him say it. But yeah, this is Kristen Thibodeau, Stone Nub Language, available today on Mike and Dave's Multiverse. Check it out.
We need to have a definition, is what we really like. What when somebody asks you, what are you looking at? You have to be able to say, well, I'm looking at these, because we do know from the record that there's all these other things that are on stone.
Mm-hmm.
Like the definition for nub can't just be bumps on stones. This is Russia, Kronstadt, Russia.
What?
Yeah.
I've never seen that. Can you zoom that?
Yeah.
I've never heard of this in my life.
See them on the side here?
Yeah, who built that?
It's supposedly a naval fort for Russia, I guess.
And it's got a bunch of nubs.
There's a bunch of them on it, and they're random. You can see they're not on every stone. Right?
Yeah, which is the nub phenomenon, right?
Which is and they're not in the same position on the stones that they're in. There's one, one there and two there. This site was supposedly built over top of an old megalithic site. That's the story, they say.
Wow. So, had you seen that site before? That Russian site?
No.
Yeah, me neither. And so I need to know: is there a freaking megalithic structure underneath there?
Yeah.
And why would modern Russians build a naval fort with nubs on it? That doesn't make any sense either. Look. I said what more times in that episode than any other episode in the history of our show. So please go watch it. Just off the top of your head, though, Ashish, like, what is your, take on the nubs? Did you watch our episode?
The nubs one I didn't watch all the way.
Just dropped.
Yeah. But I've been also considering what those nubs are, and I know that the conventional idea is that they're used to like help lift them or whatever, and it doesn't make
some
any
of them
sense.
might be. Some of them
maybe, but he also, I think I recall correctly. If I recall correctly, I've seen those nubs in China as well on massive stone.
Yes, massive. Yeah,
absolutely massive stone, and the nubs just wouldn't be able to lift that kind of a stone if you put some sort of. It's just not how that works. I like the idea of thinking of it as like a language or encode. It's actually really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, and that's a really good idea to explore. See if that works out.
It's worth exploring. The problem is that what Crispin runs into is like people that like have other ideas. They attack the new idea. So, for example, people who are into the whole geopolymer theory, they are not nice to Crispin. I'll just put it that way.
Really?
I don't get that. It's like, it seems like some of them could be geopolymers, like some of them not. Who knows? Like I wish we'd stop fighting about this stuff, because it's not
team,
that.
guys,
Same team. Yeah, same team. But again, Crispin, way too much rationality and way too much sense that conversation. So go check it out. Also, Mike did an episode with Dr. Joanne Ballard of the Comet Research Group, and they went deep into younger dryas impact hypothesis. I'm just going to play that real quick.
It turns out the conifers, pines and spruces and hemlocks, but mostly pines and spruces, they need fire to thrive. So often they're going to burn. A lightning strike or drought or something, they're going to burn. You know, I talk about, which is Atlantis in the Sahara. Who would have expected? I mean, what a great place for Poseidon and Zeus to hide Atlantis. Underneath the desert, if it was an aquatic city, I think to look in the desert to find an aquatic city.
So Dr. Joanne Ballard, lovely lady, and very, very smart, bringing some data into her Atlantis theory. Did you happen to watch the debate at Cosmic Summit?
I didn't. I have too many things on my plate. Adding Atlantis to the plate would be pretty rough.
No, I mean like the debate at Cosmic Summit this last Cosmic Summit. Did you go to the debate that they had?
No, I didn't. I was
okay. It's okay. Atlantis is one of those things where it's like, I think you're going to need a time machine, but that's besides the point. She held her own on stage with some of the biggest names about that subject, and you can hear it right there. And then last, I'm just going to show a quick short, because we interviewed this guy, Michael Arbuthnot, who has a podcast called Underground, and he's a real archaeologist who's trying to bridge the gap between speculative theory and archaeology. And this man actually dove on the Titanic with James Cameron himself. Here's the short. Let's check it out. And this comes out on Friday. I'm super stoked about it. It's one of I say this every week, but this is one of my favorite episodes.
Sometimes you see bioluminescence through the windows, about 2-hour descent. And when you get to the ocean floor, we had 2 submersibles, Mir 1 and Mir 2, and we flew them across the ocean floor up about 6 inches, side by side, blasting a spotlight down on the ocean floor. And like looking out the porthole window, I could see the other side. It was like a moonscape, it was just the abysmal plain, the sandy abyss there. And it felt very, very alien. I was like, this is as close as you can come to being on another planet, but being right here on Earth. And then you start to see, some of the debris from Titanic. It's like following the breadcrumbs. They increase in intensity and number.
Subscribe to Mike and Dave.
So go check out Michael Arbuthnot, Arbuthnot podcast. He's a marine archaeologist who's dove all over the world. He is open to the idea of a lost ancient civilization. And is not afraid to say it out loud, but he also won't just dive right in or anything like that. He very much stays in the middle, and his podcast is really good. His first episode was with Zahi Hawass, which I thought was a pretty badass first episode, wouldn't you say?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Have that as your first guest. That's an awesome launchpad. I think that the sea is definitely worth exploring more. I think if I recall correctly, the number is somewhere around, we've only explored somewhere around 24% of the oceans. And so the overwhelming majority of it, we have no idea what it is or what's in there, what it's like. And they even say now that we're seeing that UAPs come out of the ocean and they're transmedium, what a perfect place to hide. If you were trying to hide, then why not go there? We have no ability to get to you if you're in there. Forget about space.
76% of the whole thing they can just go dark on, and they could have a whole what was that dude's name on episode 1 of Star Wars? um, shoot. Anyway, that
Jar Jar.
Yeah, there could be a whole city of Jar Jars
Jar Jar
down there.
Binks down there.
Yeah, just like in Star Wars. Yeah, because that's where he came from. But jokes aside, yeah, we know more about space than we do about the ocean. I laugh. That's why I laugh. Like when people take their opinions and their ideas so seriously. I don't laugh at them, but I laugh to myself because it's like we're human. We're hominids with cell phones. Like we're using Grok. Like we don't really know squat about anything. like on the grand scheme of things. You know what I'm saying?
For me, I'm too far along on this at this point to believe that this is the result of stupidity or mistakes. In my opinion, this is happening intentionally now. And so, I mean, I see too many things that are broken at a kindergarten level in understanding that don't make any sense. That people are like defending, like their lives dependent on it.
I know.
And I think what we're going to see is that this is, we know about it in UAPs. I'm sure this is not exclusive to UAPs. The deception tactics are clearly being used everywhere. And I think archaeology is another one of those things. It's going to be as big of a lie as what they've been doing in the UAPs. It'll be that big or bigger. And I think, I mean, as much as the intelligence agencies and U.S. Air Force have been hiding a lot of the tech in UAPs, probably because they're trying to hide the propulsion system. That kind of deception, I think that level of it is happening with the NSA and archaeology. And I think what's kind of sad is that a lot of these answers that we're looking for, unfortunately, I think they've already been found. And they're just suppressed. Yes, exactly.
So did you happen to catch Ben Van Kerkwijk on Rogan? Just literally dropped today.
I saw just the first 30 minutes. I need to watch the rest of it.
Okay, so I just saw the first 30 minutes too, but they got into the whole like potential tic tac underneath the dang Giza plateau or whatever.
Under the labyrinth. Yeah, when Ben Van Kerkwijk announced that under the labyrinth at the Cosmic Summit, I put him down as the best, like the most.
I don't think people quite got the implications of what he was saying or something. I don't know because like, I mean, Joe was hilarious too because he's like, but just what if, just pretend they go down there and they find a fucking UFO. I really hope I hope that's what it is. I want that to be true. I want to believe that.
I want to believe.
That would be so badass.
Well, one way or the other, whatever it is, the fact that it's metallic and that big, like it doesn't matter what it is. That's incredible. No matter
it could be like a water reservoir. It's still fucking amazing. Yeah. So,
especially at that time frame and the sheer quantity of tunnel networks that we're finding underneath the ground all over the world, not just there.
I know.
Yeah, we're gonna find out that if there's an advanced civilization capable of building these megaliths above ground, turns out that they're even more advanced to be able to build stuff underground.
Oh and my gosh, that's true.
I can't pronounce this word right, but Darren Kuyu in Turkey. That, I mean, I don't know too much about the European archaeology, but that's like one that like telltale sign that this is something. And what's interesting also about all this is what is currently not accepted is that there was information translation across all these civilizations while they were building these megaliths. And I think what we're finding out is that if all these different continents all over the world are able to build megaliths above ground, and now we're finding out they're also able to build megaliths underground, I think we need to start looking for design elements that overlap between these different civilizations and start defeating this concept that there was no information translation among civilizations back in ancient
history. I think that's silly though. I mean, the whole Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It's like ridiculous. I mean, but just so people who aren't aware of Darren Cougar, it's 18 stories deep, about 85 to 90 meters, roughly 4 to 4.5 square kilometers. Capacity believed to house 20,000 people. Some Turkish dude was doing some reservations in his basement, poked a hole in his basement wall and found a fucking city. And like, I have a feeling that we're going to find more of that stuff just randomly. You know,
if you want to get really conspiracy oriented, I've seen the tunnels in Vietnam and the tunnels don't make any sense either. And if you just look at the layout and the design of the tunnels in Vietnam, they're not meant to. Nobody's trying to run through those tunnels. I mean, I'm sure they exist, some tunnels that are supposed to be like that, but you look at the really big tunnels that they have in Vietnam, no,
I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot down there.
We need to get into this in a different
Yeah.
episode then.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting to me because what civilizations do is they tend to, like, when they find older shit, they reuse it. It's possible that, like, the North Vietnamese during that war, they were using those tunnels that they just found, not that they made for guerrilla warfare, right?
You're
Is
on
that,
it.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. Those layouts don't make any sense.
Wow. Okay. We'll have to talk about that another time, because that's a rabbit hole. So we're here to talk about AI and, like, implications of AI. Where are we at the AI event horizon? But first, I wanted Ashish to really just explain what does when the media is saying AI, what is AI? What's the history of AI? What is because you told me you have your own sort of, like, interpretation of what AI is. So would you lead us through that, please?
Yeah. So I think in the current zeitgeist, AI is commonly referencing the LLMs, most commonly the large language models.
Yeah.
And so this is what I think the zeitgeist understands AI as being. I don't think that's actually what AI is. Now, you were asking for a definition for AI. I don't think that there's a real definition for AI yet, because if you really think about it, you would need to be able to define intelligence in order to define artificial intelligence, which is the same thing as trying to define life. And that's where I'll end up going. Or
consciousness.
And I know that the definition of life has also changed since I was in school. Like in high school, I remember learning like 3 or 4 different, like, minimum definitions for life, and they keep changing.
Right.
And I think one of the things that they taught us way back when was that life requires reproduction, and if you don't reproduce, but then if you take away reproduction from everything on Earth, are they no longer alive? Like, that's not really how it works.
These are the things that I remember in, like, 8th grade science. Produces waste, needs sunlight, requires oxygen. Did I say reproduction yet? Reproduction.
No. Yep.
And then there was one more. There was supposed to be 5.
5
Water, fuel, waste.
Just sounds like a description of humans trying to describe humans.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, for tardigrades, for one, and there's all these other extremophiles in the ocean, and extremophiles in volcanoes and shit. So
and plenty of life that doesn't require light.
Plenty.
Yeah. And also, where is the definition? Where does life begin? Is another controversial question. Like, so viruses are life technically, but they don't fit any of that stuff. Yeah.
Fungus is life, but it's weird as fuck. We don't really understand it at all.
In fact, the Earth used to be covered in fungus. It used to have, like, fungus that was high as trees.
It still technically is, right? I mean, everything, like, most like, all forests have a fungal network of sorts, right?
Oh yeah, and interesting how they're able to communicate information between trees through the mycelium network, which is even more nuts.
That's so crazy. And we're just finding this stuff out, like, the last 10 years,
Yeah,
we don't even know what it means.
Yeah. So I'm not going to be very satisfying in giving you a true definition of what I think AI actually is, but I'll go through the zeitgeist at least to give you some kind of idea of how this all started. So if you want to start in the beginning, it starts with Alan Turing. And the biggest prize, the Nobel Prize equivalent of computer science, is the Turing Award. So that's who Alan Turing is, who that award is named after. And like a lot of things, especially in science, this person was obviously persecuted and ended up dying as a result of the persecution. But his origin story is in the military code breaking during World War II.
Okay.
And he helped break the code for Enigma. Enigma was like their encoded system that they used in World War II. The Germans were using that in World War II. And they had made, like, a little machine, and it had rotating cylinders. And based off of the original starting point of these rotating cylinders, they could encode information. And you had to know the starting point of these rotating cylinders in order to be able to decipher the language. So this is kind of like early cryptography as well. So cryptography was really primitive back then. In fact, if you go back in history, I think even Caesar used what's called a Caesar algorithm. He used cryptography to encode messages. So cryptography has existed from a long time. And early, like just to give you some like early ideas of how cryptography started off, um, in order to decrypt cryptography without having the key, one of the easiest and early methods of doing that was statistical analysis on language. So if you, for example, in the English language, if you run a statistical probability model on the occurrence of letters in the English language, you'll end up getting the most common letter to be the letter E. And if you do a distribution map on the occurrence of letters in language, in actual written language, you will be able to maybe match the encoded text statistically to the prevalence in the actual language itself. So, for example, I don't remember off the top of my head the exact number. I'm going to make some of this up, but like, let's just pretend the statistical occurrence of the letter E is 20%. That, and it's probably way lower than that. But if you see a character in the encrypted language, encrypted text that you know is for English, like it's supposed to decrypt into English, then you can run a statistical analysis on the occurrence of each of the letters. And if you find a letter there that is occurring 20% of the time, and none of the others are matching that, then you can assume that whatever that letter is supposed to be E, for example. And then you can keep doing that and you map the statistical analysis. That's like an early version of it.
Okay.
Then he started going into like rotations. And so, and this is kind of what Caesar was doing, is he would basically take the letter and then rotate it 13 or whatever number of characters down. So if you start with an A, you go 13 characters down, and then whatever that character is, that's the letter that you would replace A with. And you keep doing that for all the letters. That's a very simple version. Then you ended up getting into more algorithmic stuff, like, and one of the most popular ones and simple ones to use right now is SHA-256 is a type of encryption. And so all this is to say that compute and the impetus for trying to develop compute came from cryptography originally. And Alan Turing was the kind of pioneer in this field. Now, he was unfortunately gay. Well, not unfortunately, but at that time, he was gay. And as a result, he was prosecuted for crimes against decency or something like that. Some ridiculous.
Where did he live? Where was he from?
In America, yeah, he was in
Oh,
America.
jeez,
Yeah, this is
wow.
American. Yeah, just another one of those. Yeah,
Wow.
just like what they did to Nikola Tesla. And
Yep,
if you guys
yep,
want to look
yep.
at the history of Einstein, even he was not ever really immune to what people were doing. So Alan Turing ended up being chemically castrated, and that was his trade-off. He chose to do that as opposed to going to prison for the rest of his life or whatever they were going to do to him. And so, yeah.
What year was this? This is insane.
He died at age in his early 50s, so that must have been post World War II, almost 1950 or around there.
Was this a common practice? I'm confused.
I don't know how common it was, but he was technically in the military. Like,
oh, it's a military thing. Yeah,
and so
that's insane. Wow.
Yeah,
there needs to be a Y-Files episode about this.
Yeah, I actually looked for one. I'm surprised AJ hasn't done one yet. On that,
that's
Alan
insane.
Turing
Poor guy.
deserves an episode. Considering that he's named after the Turing Award, or the Turing Award is named after him.
Yeah, there's a test and an award?
Oh yeah, there's also a Turing test. Yeah.
Okay.
These things, they were built in a primitive age, and so this was a very early primitive understanding of compute.
I just realized my name says Mick for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
So just because you can fool someone into thinking that they're human doesn't mean that it's actually human. Like, large language models sound like they're human. They would pass a Turing test. That's not a very, let's call it, it's not a very mathematical discrete definition. It's kind of like, where do you begin life? Like, it's more of a fuzzy line.
Is the Turing test like better than nothing or what?
Yeah, better than nothing. Yeah. Sure.
It's vague though. It's vague.
It's vague, yeah. The thing that I would say he was really known for is the Turing machine, more than anything. And this is basically a hypothetical model that is very useful to use. It's a tape that can either read or write a bit on this tape. and it has a little pointer that will go to a field on this tape. Just imagine a field a tape with a bunch of fields on it, single fields, kind of like a big row Excel, like an Excel file. You have a row of fields. Imagine one of those that goes infinitely, and you have a little pointer that points at one of the cells. And with that pointer, you can go to a spot and write or delete whatever is in that spot. And that's basically the whole Turing machine. And this is useful because it turns out that you can pretty much write all code like this. It turns out that a lot of Turing machine will kind of be a useful model for. Is this? Oh yeah, this is basically a Turing machine. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
I needed a visual. I'm a visual guy. So
there you go.
For anyone who wanted a visual, is that what we're talking about?
Basically, yeah, it's like this. Now, in reality, like this is an actual practical, Turing machine that's done in real life. But in reality, what these are actually used for is more of like mental models.
Okay.
And they're used in like proofs, mathematical proofs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, if you want to get really into the weeds here, they end up classifying the difficulty of problems based on whether a Turing machine can solve it or not. And this is like the first version of it, but then this thing evolved as well, and they made multiple different kinds of Turing machines. Okay. And then they added memory and other things, and they make it more complicated. We don't need to get into all that.
It started with that, and now all of a sudden, Grok is telling me how to make stuffing for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly.
So how the hell did we get there?
Yeah, so the next big evolution was circuits, and that was basically where you get these things called NAND gates. Capital NAND, and this is where electrical engineering and circuitry gets involved. And they basically created these gates, logic gates. That's what they're called, logic gates. And this is what allows you to do your mathematical operations. And so they found some base primitives. I think they're like 5 or 6. Maybe there's a little bit more now. And these little gates are what allow your computers, even to this day, to do all kinds of compute. And effectively, this is built on binary. Yeah, either a 0 or 1. And what they've shown in binary is that you can effectively break everything down, all mathematical concepts down to binary, and then if you can do that, you can use these logic gates to do that math. And so binary math gets fed into these logic gates, and they run these decisions. And then that's how you get compute. And a couple of these logic gates are convenient. You don't even need that many to do all compute. Some of these are just added on for convenience. But really, an AND gate, an AND gate, an OR gate, a NOR gate, and a NOT gate is basically all you need. And then the rest is just convenience.
Could you continue adding more for more convenience?
Possibly, yeah. I'm sure they will eventually. Yeah, it's just not necessary.
Okay.
Because binary is pretty simple. And mathematical operations are pretty simple at their fundamentals. It's about really where the complications come from is combining a bunch of logic gates together into a system and making sure that system is robust. That's actually where it gets difficult. And this is a big impetus for why there's so many transistors and why compute is related to transistors. So you can think of each transistor as a 0 or 1 in the binary math, and it's feeding these fields of 0s and 1s into these logic gates, and that's what's doing the compute. It gets an answer, and then it goes from the transistor to the gate, and then get a compute and go back to the transistor, and that's basically what a computer is at its fundamentals. So as a result of this is why we have Moore's law. So Moore's law has been used for a very long time. And Moore's law, if you don't know, it's a long-standing law that basically says that compute will double every 2 years as a result of the reduction in size of transistors. So in other words, the expectation with Moore's law was that the size of the transistor would halve every 2 years, equaling doubling, meaning you could fit more transistors on the same space.
Has that been accurate so far?
Up until a point. And then there was this guy named Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, who came along. And then he brought about the GPU, and he just blew Moore's law out of the water.
I wish I invested back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. So yeah, one of the most valuable companies on earth, more than $4 trillion in market cap now. and probably more to go. The big thing here is that what he found is that he found that GPUs, which are a combination of hardware, software, and AI in the present day, all three of these things create an accelerated effect on compute. And it turns out that the kind of math that GPUs do, which is ray tracing, another thing that NVIDIA kind of figured out, or at least that's the origins of it. This other thing also really helped AI. It seems to be uniquely effective at doing mathematical computation related to AI.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening is the GPUs are now, the numbers I've seen scale at about 1.7x per year. So more than doubling every 2 years.
Oh.
And so if there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil, have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard the name. I'm trying to remember what from.
Ray Kurzweil is like this famous guy for kind of making a lot of predictions based off of compute. And let me pull this up real quick. I should have done this. But this chart is worth seeing.
Go ahead and share it.
Yeah. Let me get to it real quick. I'm sorry.
No worries. I really appreciate it. Kurzweil, American computer scientist, author, entrepreneur, futurist, and inventor, involved in fields such as optical character recognition, text-to-speech synthesis, all that stuff. You were doing that in your research too, weren't you? Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. My research was mostly based on cameras, which I'll talk about a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
And why I think vision is like basically the most important thing in AI. Here, I'll share my screen. Let's see if this works.
It should. It'll give me a little. There we go. Boom.
So this is a presentation from Ray Kurzweil, and if you want to learn a little bit more about him, I recommend this this presentation, this video on YouTube. But this chart he has up there shows the compute per dollar and how it's been changing over time. And you can see it's been mostly, this is a logarithmic scale, by the way. So this is even though it looks linear, it's actually exponential. And because this is log 10. And so what you can see is even on the logarithmic scale, if you can see my mouse, in the more recent years, you can see this is the beginning of an S curve.
Yeah, and it's a hockey stick.
There you go. Yeah, and you can kind of think about AI like this. This is where we're at in AI. We're at the beginning of the S curve.
Okay, so if you go to that like late 60s, early 70s, there's another one, right? And so that's
this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is basically the moving away from vacuum tubes into the transistor and that whole boom. This is like the Intel era, I think, and all that.
That's really interesting, though. So you're predicting a big S curve here.
Oh yeah, I would bet a lot of money on it, actually. So you can kind of see in politics right now, there's a massive push for energy. Like a huge amount of push for energy, building out energy, getting as much power and electricity as we can. Doesn't matter the source at this point, because we're very limited.
Is it data storage? Is that why they're doing that?
Not storage. It's so there are two major elements of cooling is a big one. There's two major elements of what happens in AI. There's the training side, which is the major intense part, and then there's inference. And that half happens on locally on the device when used. Now, inference on a per unit basis is very small, like the cost of energy is very small, and training is massive. But as the AI gets deployed out in the industry, the collective compute for all the inference that's being done ends up stacking up quite a lot, because now it's not just one device, it's every device that needs to do the compute, and adding all that up now becomes a high demand. But so at least that one's distributed, which is an advantage a little bit.
So just make sure I understand, like, as we're all like typing into Chat GPT and Grok and asking it different questions, it's building like a an intelligence or something, right? It's building a base.
It's already got that built, and you're basically querying that base. And it's running it through the AI on the back end is running your input and generating the output, but the algorithm already exists, and it's basically a mathematical formula, and it's solving the math. Kind of like what Bitcoin does in that regard. It's like basically just trying to solve the math. And where that energy intensity comes from is the complexity of that math. Now, the math on the training side is enormous and incredibly complex. Sometimes to train these models, I think it takes them like a month straight of just training nonstop on a lot of these big models, sometimes more.
What does that look like? Training one of these models, like just like when you say like a month, like how many people are we talking? Like what is that? I don't even know what does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So every model is probably going to be proprietary, so it's not like there's going to be a one answer here. But the gist of how it goes is that you need to have a huge amount of training data. So that massive amount of training data is already data intense because we're talking about massive quantities of data, like unbelievable quantities. Now this data needs to get parsed into the model, and that model has to run a pattern recognition math effectively on that training data, and eventually align the weights in a certain way. And then once it does all that end product of all the weights, whatever the and this could, when I say weights, there could be billions of weights, parameters, weights. You can use this interchangeably. And then once you get that final output, that's like, you can think of it as one long equation is what you can think of it as. And that long equation, it takes in your input, crunches the data, and then spits out an output. And that's basically what you're trying to get out of AI at a very, very high level. Now, there's a lot, when I say you have to parse the data, there's a lot that goes into that. And then on top of that, there's even more, there's like a whole engineering discipline that's built around just how you manage the hardware in doing this. So you have to take this massive amount of data and split it across all those GPU clusters and all that hardware, and then have the answers come back together somehow. So there's like a whole engineering discipline that is just built on the flow, information flow, and how to process it sequentially through the system. Probably a little bit outside of the context for this. But the point is, what is important to know here is that there's a huge amount of proprietary data involved with this. And there's a huge amount of energy demand that's involved with this to run all this compute and do all this. And then the inference compute, individually, the devices are not that energy intense by comparison, but it's the scale that makes that energy really intense. And so this is why there's two halves that are really energy intense in order to make AI work. And this is why there's such a huge push right now with the Trump admin in getting massive amounts of energy online as fast as possible. And we're in a competition with this because China's doing this.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So it reminds me of a Cold War in a way, because there's probably not just China's doing it. Somebody else, there's probably a few other people doing it small time. So how is that manifesting? Like, because I pay zero attention to the quote politics that everyone else pays attention to, but are you aware, how is this like manifesting in like the geopolitics of energy and stuff? Like how is the US trying to get energy just any way possible? You're saying like we're
pretty much, yeah,
making deals,
trillions upon trillions
contracts.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers are absurd at this point. I mean, they're insane. There are trillions upon trillions of dollars that are being invested in the energy infrastructure right now. It's basically a Manhattan Project on steroids. I mean, I think they're putting more into this on a dollar cost adjusted or an inflation adjusted basis than they did in the Manhattan Project. So we could start thinking of it in those terms. How many Manhattan projects are we putting into the energy infrastructure? And if you recall, like a couple of years ago or a few years ago, there was that snowstorm that happened in Texas that knocked out all the power in Austin and stuff like that. That happened as a result of our infrastructure bottleneck over there. And a lot of people don't know, but the way our energy infrastructure is set up right now is that we have like 5 sectors that are set up across the country. And if there's an energy demand that is outpaced in one sector, they have to go and buy that missing energy from one of the other sectors. And there are translation costs. There's like fees that are added on top. And this will start, and you can see the price per kilowatt like skyrocket astronomically. So when we're talking about this kind of energy demand, like it wouldn't be, it's not like they're paying the same amount that you're paying for your electricity at home. Like when they're using this much electricity, they end up requiring demand from anywhere and everywhere, and they can end up paying like 10, 20 times the cost per kilowatt easily, just with the stacking fees and trying to pull the energy from elsewhere on the grid. And that's even if they can do it in the first place at all.
Where are these like centers located? Do you know?
Oh, they divided the country. It's like a cartel almost. They divided the country into 5 sections, and the utility companies have share power within these sections. And if if California wanted to buy power from Michigan, they would have to jump like 3 sectors and pay fees along the
I
way.
had no
just to get
idea that this is how this. So there's a whole infrastructure behind that nobody has any idea about. That's insane.
And if you want to look at it even more, it'll just make you frustrated. It's
I don't. Yeah. So yeah. So we're increasing our energy demand exponentially because we're increasing our AI usage exponentially. Like I said, just as an individual, I have like in the last year, you multiply that by, the population of the developed world, and that's a lot of energy.
Oh yeah, and it's actually going to be even more than that. It's under the assumption that there's 1 AI per person, but that's actually not true.
I use like 4 different ones.
Well, AI is going to get implemented into basically all the devices, all the electronic devices. So just imagine how many devices you have per person in your house. Just look at anyone's house. You have devices all over the place. Your car has hundreds of sensors in them. So maybe even thousands. So that's where it gets really tricky, is that it's not like anyone's buying just 1 AI. You're going to end up buying AI in everything. So inference isn't going to be like just what you're doing on ChatGPT.
Right.
And so like kind of the work that I was doing it in automated vehicles. And in automated vehicles, you're going to have AI all through that. So that's a huge energy demand. And then you have things like robots, Optimus. They're all going to be using AI. You have vacuums that are using AI, like the robo vacuums now.
Mine does.
Yeah, exactly. And these are becoming really commonplace. And this is not, I know it's a lot of change, and change can be scary. But I don't know that we should be looking at change as being scary, really. This is actually something that we should be embracing. So I kind of was starting earlier by saying there isn't a good definition for what AI actually is, because it requires you to end up defining what intelligence actually is, and we can't even do that. So all I would say is that the math behind AI and the fundamentals of it are a reward and cost function. So effectively, they figured out how to make a function for a reward and a function for the cost for that reward. And they do planning and projection based on this. And everyone's there's all kinds of different formulas that can be fit into this. Like, there's not one standardized formula, and many of them are probably proprietary, but basically you're balancing these two things, and then maybe they add a couple other variables or whatever. All these things become proprietary really quickly, but the gist of it is that it's a reward and cost function, and it's a math that's designed to optimize for the best reward at the lowest cost, or at least that's what it's trying to achieve.
Okay.
And so your reward can be defined any way you want it, and your cost can be defined any way you want it. And it's about making this as correct as you possibly can to match the world.
Wow. I had no idea. So I wanted you to explain a little bit about your research. You were working with AI vision in cameras in automated vehicles. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Computer vision, yeah. So computer vision right now doesn't get the respect that it deserves for AI. Because again, in my opinion, AI is not a large language model. A large language model uses like the fundamentals of AI. But if you were trying to say what is AI, like you're thinking about the apocalypse and Terminator scenario, the LLM isn't going to get you there. That's a language in the brain is a very small part of the brain right here. And language is just a form of pattern recognition, a purely mathematical concept. And a way to think about this and understand this without having to go into the math or whatever, the way to understand this is that two people in this world can say the same sound and understand two different things. Meaning a word in English and a word in another language can sound exactly the same, but mean two totally different things. So two people can interpret the same sound as something else. And so that means that it's a form of pattern recognition. It's only what your pattern you're trained on, basically through learning, like an AI. The human does the same thing. You have to learn the pattern of the language, and then that's how you are able to interpret it. So another way of thinking about this same concept is if you walk into a room with 10 people speaking different languages that you've never heard of before, not that you don't understand them, you've never even heard those languages before. If you walk into that room with 10 different people talking, you won't be able to discern easily between one person and another person talking if it's a jumbled mess of noise. But as soon as one of those people starts speaking English, all of a sudden you can zone in on that sound, and you'll be able to pick that wavelength out from the rest of the noise because
And
you're
that's the
trained on
pattern
that.
recognition.
There you go. Exactly.
Got it.
So this is the way to understand what language is. So equating language to intelligence, like making those things equal, it does not make any sense to me. And that's kind of where my research comes in. I was trying to interpret intelligence from the perspective of the human brain. And where I'm going to end up going with this, and kind of the setup that I want to build here, is that right now in the zeitgeist, and I don't know how this happened, but for whatever reason in the zeitgeist, we believe that DNA is the cause of evolution. Now, I don't know how that happened. I've never heard actually scientists saying that. The people who discovered DNA didn't say that. Darwin didn't say that. And as far as I know, the answer to that question is not known. What is the cause of evolution? DNA is the product of evolution, not the cause. That's why they're correlated. Evolution and DNA are correlated because it's the product. So I actually don't know how that got into the zeitgeist, because as far as I know, there's no official source that actually says that. So
I think that's interesting. It's one of those ones where, like, if you think about it intuitively, you're like, oh yeah, that's wrong. But it's also one of those ones where, like, you do hear that in the zeitgeist. And and so you're saying that it's I don't want to, you're going somewhere with this, but our interpretation of that is wrong. And that's wild to me.
Yeah, and there's also plenty of anecdotal evidence that you would know in your regular life that would prove this. So first of all, like it is understood, and the mechanism is widely published and accepted in academia on how the brain controls DNA. The brain has mechanisms that are understood that allow it to change your DNA, turn on and off certain aspects of DNA. And one way of understanding this is if you work out, then you have a certain switch that changes on DNA. But if you go into feast mode, so there's feast and famine mode. If you go into feast mode, it turns other things on in your DNA. And so based off of your environment, your certain switches on your DNA will turn on and off. So even what is on and off in your everyday life isn't static. Your DNA has switches that turn on and off, and this mechanism is widely accepted and understood that this is controlled by the brain. So
I'm just laughing because the perception is so backwards in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, and just to, like, since we're talking about just another way of looking at how dumb this is, in order for DNA to even work, you need to have a massive amount of infrastructure around it. It's not like DNA by itself just does all the magic. You have to have all the ribosomes. You have to have the histones to zip the file. I look at DNA as being software. You have to have the histones to zip the file. You also have to have a way of unraveling it. You have to have reproduction. You have to have the proteins that you need to code. So all this stuff that DNA needs in order to even function, all of that had to exist in order for DNA to even function in the first place. So how is DNA causing evolution if all that other stuff didn't happen yet? So, and why would the cell evolve DNA first and then evolve all the stuff? Like, how would it know that it was eventually going to evolve all this other stuff that it would use DNA for? So, yeah, there's a lot of order of operations problems with DNA.
And that's why I like guys like you, because you always go to the order of operations. And so What are we looking at here in relation to your research here?
Yeah. So what I want to convey here is that intelligence, even I'm not going to have a very good definition of intelligence, but I hope to get directionally correct. And so one thing that I can surmise about intelligence in the real world is that you need to exist in the real world. And so something about the real world is probably relevant to intelligence and relevant to evolution. So let's just start with that fundamental concept.
Okay, so let me
Meaning that,
just,
yeah,
in order to have intelligence to exist at all, it must exist in whatever the real world is, whatever we interpret
right.
that as it. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So this is controversial because there's a lot of people that think that there's such a thing as an artificial intelligence that can exist only in the digital world. And I think maybe that's possible, maybe that's true. But even if that is true, where there's an actual living intelligence that can exist in the digital world, I suspect, again, with order of operations, even if that is possible, that happens after the kind of intelligence that exists in the real world. It's not like you go to the artificial one right away, right? So hopefully I'm not saying groundbreaking things here. I'm saying some basic stuff.
I know, but I know you are, but you're saying it in a way that's like, well, it's not groundbreaking or anything. It's just making me laugh because it's like most people don't look. I'm telling you right now, most people do not see the world like that.
Yeah. So hopefully this is just some simple framing. And again, hopefully I'm not taking any of the wonder away. I'm just bringing rationality to conversation, and maybe it even magnifies the wonder. Because the real version of this, I think, is even more incredible.
That's how I feel about like pretty much everything. Like for example, 3i Atlas is a good example. We get all these different wild interpretations and stuff like that. Everyone's all over the radar. But if the data's if it's just a comment, it's pretty fucking awesome, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So this is all to build up the argument that if you want to build real AI, true AI, real intelligence, then you must have to be able to interact in the real world, or at least understand the real world. So my research area is focused on perception. So I'm working at step 1 here. I understand a lot of the stuff down the road is applicable, but let's just start with step 1, and that's actually my home base. So this is the general concept, what I'm showing on the screen. I'm not going to get too deep in the math. Don't worry if you're panicking. But this is just to say that there are 3 critical elements.
I was panicking a little bit.
Yeah, don't worry. You don't need to know all this math. Don't worry. Okay. I'm not going to go too math heavy. All I'm trying to say is that there are 3 major elements to interacting in the real world. You have to have perception, you need to have dynamics, and then you need to have control. And then all this stuff over here, what it's saying is it's just trying to find the minimum error in the policy. So what is the least wrong policy policy of execution? So based off of these 3 inputs, or these 3 like equations, what is the minimum error policy, the least wrong answer? And so that's what this is like. Basic robotics is what you would call this. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about some of the competing architectures, but where I want to go with this, and I'm going to hit on LiDAR pretty hard, and I'm going to critique LiDAR throughout this presentation like it's a piece of shit. But I want to be clear up front that LiDAR does have a real world purpose, and it is useful, and it is a good tool to use in certain applications. I want to be clear that when I'm criticizing LiDAR, it's in the context of automated systems. A LiDAR does not make any sense at all in any automated system in the real world. It does have functional purposes. It is used in space. It's great at mapping depth and layout, but it is not useful in automated vehicles. And I'm going to really hit that here because this is like one of the things that irks me. I'm still pissed off at how much attention LiDAR gets. So I want to show you kind of what the problems are with perception. And as I go through this, you'll see I'm going to build up the argument for all the failure cases of LiDAR and why LiDAR as a system doesn't make any sense. So
can I stop you really quick? So they're using a lot of research is going into using LiDAR in these automated systems, and you're saying that that's a waste of time?
Yeah.
Okay,
100%.
all right. Sorry, I just
So
want to make sure
just
that's where you're going.
sometimes I forget that not everyone is familiar. So examples of common LiDAR-based systems that are being deployed in the world right now. We have Waymo's the big one,
Okay, yeah.
which is owned by Google. And then we had in the past, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. This is a great testing ground because we have 360 days of sunshine. And so one of the things about LiDAR is it requires geofence mapping. You have to basically map the area, same area over and over and over and over again. And then it like basically memorizes the area and then it can navigate through it, which again is not, in my opinion, real AI. But that's what they're using.
That's what I think that's what my robot vacuum uses, right?
LiDAR does that. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And one of the things is that LiDAR systems are pretty expensive. The Waymo systems, I think they have one spinning major LiDAR up on top, and then I think they have 4 on each of the corners, and I think maybe one more in the back center, if I recall correctly. So
sorry, continue. I'm sorry.
This system costs anywhere between $50,000 to $80,000 is the estimate. And that's just the LiDAR systems.
Wow.
And then you have to buy the vehicle on top, and they're putting them on Jaguars. So that's like 80,000 or so for that. So when you add this up, each one of those vehicles, before you do anything, this is just the hardware cost alone, no software, no R&D, no engineer, no safety driver, nothing. That's like 150, 180,000, something in this range per vehicle on the road.
Is that really more efficient than just paying a hominid to drive the thing?
No, but Waymo is owned by Google, and they don't have a problem with money.
Okay.
So there were other companies that have tried to deploy LiDAR systems. One of them was Uber, and unfortunately, some years ago, they killed someone in Tempe, here in Arizona, in Phoenix, as a result of their system.
Wow, I think I heard about that.
And then you might recall a couple years ago, there was a GM in California was using a LiDAR-based system, ended up dragging a person underneath their car for like 30 plus feet. And yeah, you'll see all kinds of stuff. Ford had a company called Argoverse, which is no longer in business because they weren't able to get it to work. And just so maybe I should have started with this. Let me describe what LiDAR is. So LiDAR is, in my opinion, a dumber version of sonar.
Okay.
And what it does is it shoots a beam of light, and then it waits for that reflection to come back. And based off of that time and distance, they can measure the depth.
Okay.
And it'll shoot millions of these lights. And that's why that thing spins around. It's spinning around, shooting a beam of light all over the place, and waiting for, kind of like sonar, it's waiting for a reflection back. But you can already imagine all kinds of problems with that, reflective surfaces and all this stuff.
Yeah, environmental issues, yeah.
Well, it's an imperceptible beam of light. You won't be able to like see it. So it's not likely to blind you or anything like that.
No, I just mean like the environment itself would affect the LiDAR.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Weather.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to hit on all that. And so I just kind of want to, one of the things that might help get away from the apocalypse narrative with AI is to start viewing AI as being a reflection of nature. True, real AI, good AI is going to be a reflection of nature. So in nature, we don't see any animal using a LiDAR-based system like in their brain, right? They're not. No one's got that. But but what is common are 2 eyes, binocular vision. So the way to solve how depth perception in nature is through binocular vision. You can create triangles by having 2 different known spaced apart cameras or eyeballs. Correct. And that's how you get depth perception. So if you cover one eye, your depth perception decreases. But motion also helps with depth perception. So that's why when you have a monocular system, even a monocular system can probably do better at depth perception than LiDAR. One of the major issues with LiDAR is so the strong point of LiDAR is depth perception. I want to be clear. That's why it's like laser precision. It is very precise depth measurement whenever it shoots that beam. So that's why it's really good when you're like flying over an area and you're shooting it at the ground. It can measure all the fine details on the ground, and it can give you really good terrain. mapping like we do now.
Also, that's why they use it in archaeology and stuff, finding ancient sites and stuff.
So as much as I'm going to shit on LiDAR today, I just want to make sure that like it is a valid tech that has real application uses. It's just automated vehicles are definitely not the correct use.
Right.
And I've actually even heard of people using LiDAR-based systems in automated ships. And if you can imagine it, it makes even less sense in that context. So one of the things that really is the most important and critical perception task, in my opinion, is object detection, especially on VRUs. VRUs are I can't say that word, vulnerable road users. So that's I think a legal term that they're using in the regulatory space. And so this is a catch-all phrase for basically people and anything like that, dogs, cats, and all kinds of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to
vulnerable road
user.
Okay.
Vulnerable road user.
Okay,
yeah, this is a regulatory term.
That's hilarious that they even have to come up with a regulatory term, but of course you do. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's gotten really hyped on the AI regulation thing. Which really, like, hopefully another thing I'll demonstrate here is that AI regulation can be simplified just by understanding what is good AI and what is not, what is real AI and what is not,
right.
Because that's equal to good AI. Make real AI, you'll get good AI.
Right.
So this is, and by the way, through this presentation, there's all kinds of sourcing. So if you ever want to go read the papers on what I'm talking about, probably every slide should have a source on it. So like this is a source for this one. This is the foundational paper on how to identify VRUs. This is a little bit dated. This is 2021, I believe. So I'm sure this has been improved since then, but this gives you an idea that you need to have 32 different attributes that you have to be able to measure to be able to identify VRU, or AKA human, on the road. And wow. I'm sure this number has increased since then. So again, just keep in mind, this is 2021 data.
But back then they were using 32 different attributes. Okay.
Yeah, this is the foundational paper on it for VRUs. And you can see that all of these things that are listed here are not going to be easy to be determined by a LiDAR-based system. Because again, LiDAR is like a dumber version of sonar. You get a point cloud representation return, and you lose...
Can you zoom that or make it bigger? I can't actually read it.
Oh, whoops.
Make it the full screen?
Yeah, you're right. I should do that.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, thank you.
So this is just going to be the beginning of kind of a large series of different attributes and different problems that occur in the real world that LiDAR is not good at, but cameras are. And the functional reason why cameras are better at this task than LiDAR is because you get all of the color and texture information. You get higher resolution data out of a camera per pixel than you do on LiDAR. And you're going to see more of that. So let me skip ahead because I don't want to get too dense into this. But here's the Argoverse. This is Argo. This is from Argo, which was owned by Ford, which is now a defunct company. But they were also attempting to make LiDAR work and force fitting that. And so you'll be surprised. And I think this is true still today, at least as far as I'm aware. The amount of research and information, despite how much energy is being put into LiDAR, the amount of research and information available about the degradation of LiDAR over range, this is like surprisingly small. I'm surprised that there aren't more people looking at how much does LiDAR degrade over distance. So the longer so it shoots a beam, a light beam out, and it's waiting for that reflection. But this quality, the number of point returns that it gets over range, this decreases significantly. The quality of that point over range decreases. And so what you're seeing here, the best case scenario here is this 51.4% LiDAR return on 0 to 50 range. This is Argoverse. So if you see SOTA, S-O-T-A, SOTA means state of the art. State of the art. So this is Argoverse's state of the art results on LiDAR based systems. 51.4% up to 50 meters in range. Then it drops by half, and then it drops by half every 50 meters.
Wow.
And again, this is like pretty rare to find anyone report any kind of data like this, and I'm surprised because this is what I think a lot of people should be focusing on. This is demonstrating a log2 degradation over range every 50 meters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
put
And
that
when
in.
you're talking about strollers and wheelchairs and dogs, it's pretty important.
Yep. And so I do the math over here at the bottom. If you're traveling at 60 miles per hour, that's 26.82 meters per second. So 50 meters of accurate range gives you, at 60 miles per hour, gives you less than 2 seconds of forecasting time.
Wow.
And that's just basic kindergarten level math on this.
Wow.
So really more work needs to be done on LiDAR degradation over range, and I would love to see more published results about this, because I'm pretty sure this is being suppressed for some reason. This stuff, if more people knew this, that no one would ever choose LiDAR, and it just gets worse from there.
So why do they, I don't mean to keep interrupting, but why are they, what, is it like a Clovis first thing or something? Somebody's just at the top is like dug in on LiDAR. There's investments in LiDAR, or what?
Yeah.
Is there some kind of cover up? Like what, it seems you just did, I don't know what kindergarten you went to, but you just did 10th grade math.
Okay.
Me.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at it, I'm going, that seems pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So
shouldn't be that hard for anyone.
So
yeah.
And then you also just demonstrated that it's entirely inefficient cost-wise as well.
Yeah. And I've learned through my personal experience in academia that it's a money game, and Waymo is funneling massive amounts of money into the academic institutions, starting with Stanford. And then you got to think, why did the number 2 city for Waymo, why is it Phoenix, and they went to ASU, Arizona State University? So like, I'm not trying to say that, state universities are bad, but how do you go from number 1 Stanford and then your number 2 spot for research is ASU? Like the magnitude of difference there is pretty insane. So I learned while I was there that overwhelmingly the entire perception and robotics group at ASU is heavily funded by Waymo. And so I was trying to do computer vision there, and they had basically 0 projects related to computer vision at ASU. They were all LiDAR or LiDAR related technologies for the most part. Yeah.
So how did they receive your research then? Was it?
Yeah, that's a whole story.
Then you don't have to get into it if you don't want.
It's pretty bad. I mean, like I've learned, you've probably heard a lot, not just from like me, but other people have talked about how the academic institutions have become hedge funds. And unfortunately, there's a lot of politics around the Tesla system, which is what I was mimicking. And camera-based systems became politicized because they were related to Tesla and therefore Elon.
That's so annoying.
And
why?
So, yeah, you end up getting caught up in this woke mafia shit.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. We'll have to talk about it offline. But wow, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So you're right. It's like a long story, but there's like a lot of horrible things that happen, and of course, AI is ripe for this kind of activity. Especially with the kind of money they're dumping. Like the numbers, trillions upon trillions of dollars. This is greater than, just to put things into context so that you understand what trillions mean, because that's incomprehensible. The bailouts of 2008 were 750 billion each, 750 and 650 billion. So when we're talking about trillions, plural, trillions of dollars going into AI, we're talking, this is like, we have to start measuring how many Manhattan projects are going into AI and energy. Yeah. So, yeah.
When I was in Austin, there was an AI car system. I don't know who, I think it's at Waymo that's there. I don't even, it is Waymo. And there was literally, this was about 3 years ago. I was literally on my way to the comedy mothership to go watch Rogan and all his buddies. And there was a dude stuck in a Waymo vehicle. It was like in the middle of the road. It was like glitching out, and he couldn't even get out of the vehicle. And there was like people, there was like a police officer. They were like calling. Nobody knew what to do. It was crazy.
Yeah, and you'll also notice that search results on Google about negative press on Waymo are heavily suppressed. You can't find anything. but they're common. And actually, this is a good spot for me to show you some hard data about this, because it's one thing for me to say it. Let me just show you.
Yeah, let's see.
So this is the NHTSA website.
Can you zoom?
ADAS collision, ADS and ADAS collision data from the NHTSA website. This is the NHTSA.gov website.
Mm-hmm.
And whoops, what did I just do? And this is for the entire country. Now remember, Waymo only operates in a few cities, but this is national reporting.
Okay.
And so they just recently expanded to a few more cities. For most of their life, Waymo has only been operating in San Francisco and in the Phoenix area. And in fact, when they first started, I was actually living in the 2-mile beta test area where they were starting their Waymo project in Phoenix. I happened to live right in that spot where they were doing it. So I saw it from day one, exactly how the systems work. So, and for some context, I've been beta testing the Tesla automated system since 2018, and I have more than 100,000 miles driven on the system across multiple cars. I've seen it in multiple different scenarios, and it's night and day. So currently, now they just expanded into a couple more cities. So these results that I'm showing on the screen are actually better than average for them.
Okay.
So they have currently, this is the Waymo reported collision data. Well, you can see here it's about 1,300 vehicles.
Wow.
They have currently 2,000 vehicles in their fleet. And the only reason they have a big uptick recently is because they just expanded. So this data hasn't really gone out a year. In a year, I expect this data to increase. So again, 2,000 vehicles in the fleet, more than 1,300 have been involved in the collision. But again, most of those 2,000 have recently been added to the fleet. So they haven't had a year yet to get into the collision database. So in the past, I've been watching this chart. This chart gets updated regularly. I've been watching this chart since 2023. I've seen up 80% of their fleet roughly as being the average for collisions. And at times earlier this year, I think I looked at it in maybe April or so, April or May of this year, the data was showing more than 100%, on average, more than one collision per vehicle in their fleet as of May. And the only reason that it's this good, which is horrible, the only reason it's this good is because they just added a bunch of vehicles.
Wow.
Now, for context, Tesla has millions of automated vehicles in their fleet using their system, and they have 2,500 collisions in the whole country. And again, Waymo only operates in geofence spaces in very specific cities.
This is all politicized because of Elon?
This was politicized even before Elon.
Okay.
Because this is again owned by Google, and
right.
And I'm not gonna show it, but if anyone's really interested, and you really want to get into the why this is happening, go look at the research papers that were published by Waymo in the year 2023. There were like 6 of them or so, 2023 and 2024, both of them. And all of it is garbage. All their safety data is garbage. It's heavily sliced, heavily manufactured, very worded very carefully for legalese. Yeah.
Bro, you were at Arizona State where they were doing all this, and you're probably asking the wrong questions, right? And not.
I gave this presentation in front of all the lab directors at the Perception and Robotics group. This is what I was applying to my PhD with, and a lot of horrible things happened immediately after that. And
wow,
still to this day, pretty bad.
And at least now you're on a new thing, which is the ancient history thing, which I think your brain, you can use the world needs your brain working on something like that.
Hopefully there's some cool stuff coming out there too. I'm going to go through a few of the problem examples. Okay. So first of all, Waymo and LiDAR-based systems require geofencing, which means that you have to map the area over and over and over again.
Okay.
But what ends up happening is that if the area changes for some reason, all your training data goes out the window. And so in these construction sites, this is very limited time use data because this is, first of all, it's going to keep changing. And on top of that, so your training data is not going to be static. And you would have to continue to revise the model every time something changes in the construction. And it's going to be a complicated set. And you would end up having to be hyper specific about what you're training on. And then as soon as they're done with the construction, you got to start over. You got to throw away all your old data that has all the construction stuff in it and do it again. So this is the problem with geofencing, is that if you're relying heavily on pre-mapping the area and expecting it to stay static and then navigating based off of memorization, that's not real AI.
Ashish, this is the exact stupid problem I have with my robot upstairs. Every time I move the furniture, it gets fucking confused. And so this should be obvious stuff, right?
Yep. Like, you don't need a degree to understand this stuff. No. I mean, like, I know AI is like, oh, super advanced. No, it's not. I mean, there are advanced stuff, but you don't need to be that advanced to understand it. And hopefully I'm making it accessible for people. You also have a big problem with lanes. So let me just give you, this is what a lane looks like in China. Or I mean, intersection, sorry, intersection. This is what an intersection looks like in China. So just like imagine the mapping problem that you would have here and the complexity that you would have it. Right. So this is a pretty, and by the way, LiDAR doesn't do shit for this part. Like it's not going to help you at all with your lanes or anything like that. You still need a camera. By the way, even with LiDAR systems, no matter what, you still need a camera anyway. So it's not like the LiDAR systems are abandoning the camera. You still need it anyway. They're just over prioritizing the LiDAR, and the LiDAR doesn't offer anything. And one of the issues when you add, this is called multiple modalities. When you add modalities, like more than one unrelated system, you have to create a whole new layer of AI on it, which is sensor fusion. And this sensor fusion also generates a new layer of error. And no one's sensor fusion is going to be perfect. And you're trying to compatibilize. You're trying to cross-compatibilize perception sensors that don't go together, that aren't naturally.
The camera and the LiDAR.
The camera and the LiDAR don't naturally fit together. Yeah, you have to do a lot to make that work. And then if that's not the only, people are doing other stuff. So then you add on radar, and if you're using millimeter wave or whatever other sensors. So if you want to add on more sensors, then it becomes even more complicated.
And this one you're about to show is one I was going to say on my own, which is like, just town to town, city to city, state to state. It's obvious, it's right on the slide,
Yep. Look at how many different versions, and they keep making new versions, and there's all kinds of like road signs you've never seen before, or always change. So all this stuff becomes highly dynamic. And of course, if you invest a lot in just training on American infrastructure, then you're pigeonholing yourself, because you won't work on any other country. So because they're going to be totally different. So you have to really figure out, if you're trying to generalize a solution, how would you solve this? And of course, this is another situation where LiDAR doesn't do shit for you. So what there is with perception is, so what I'm really saying here is that the world and the universe is an open set environment. What that means is that there is an infinite number of possibilities. So if you're trying to train on memorization, you're guaranteed to fail, because you will not be able to memorize infinity. And there will always be what are known as long tail cases. So these are the three types of issues that you're running into. You're going to have your core known cases, which is this green bubble. Then you're going to have the known long tail, rare events. And then you're going to have this much larger universe of unknown events, unknown long tail cases. That's actually larger.
It's almost like the ocean. We know 24% of it, and the rest we don't.
Right.
And it could be forever, just like the universe.
And so, like I'm showing here, sometimes you'll have a dinosaur walking across the street. Sometimes you'll have, this is a literal plane on the road. You have a giant tree on a thing, and unusual bicycles, unusual trailers, unusual vehicle types. And this is even particularly interesting. This is a minivan top as a sidecar to a motorcycle. So this, if you're doing it based off of shape, if you're classifying based off of shape, which is what LiDAR does, this would be considered a minivan probably. And that's really complicated. And LiDAR fails a lot with contextual clues because of this. This is
I was just going to say, this is really cool slide, but I was just going to say that I was just thinking of other examples. Like, I remember one time I was walking down the street in New York City, and a big brawl broke out in the middle of the street. And what's LiDAR going to do about that? Because there's so many things happening. Cars are moving out of the way. There's literally like 20 people fighting. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, this is just to illustrate a bunch of other rare examples, like things that can happen on the road that you would have to account for. And most of these things LiDAR is not going to be any good at. And in particular, I want to draw attention to center top and center bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So center top is a situation where you have a bunch of small mammals on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And center bottom is a bunch of flying pages.
Okay.
And you can see how this goes really wrong, especially if you're trying to classify things based off of shape. Because you may go, if you're dealing with the top situation, you train on the top situation, you may go very cautiously. But if you're training on the bottom situation, you may go very aggressively.
That's insane.
Yeah. And the horrible part is when you get these reversed.
Mm-hmm. You run over a bunch of dogs or squirrels or something, or people.
Exactly. But you have to be able to train for both situations. And then, of course, you have really weird stuff. Like sometimes, like in this far right one, you have a random washer that starts rolling down the road. Right? And then you have trees that'll block your path. If you try to do lane following, so this is another cheat that a lot of AVs use. They try to do lane following.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll follow the car in front. Well, that's dependent on the human in front being attentive.
Correct.
And so you can see that the system fails because it's trying to follow the lane. The car in front, and the one in front messed up, so this one messes up.
That's wild.
And then you have a trash can blowing through the wind. That's what's happening here. This is
Which
a trash
one?
can.
In the
this
middle?
One right here.
Yeah.
Bottom right. You can still see my mouse, right?
I can. Yeah. I just couldn't.
So this is a trash can. And normally, so here's another thing. A lot of people in AI try to train on kinematic bits, which is like motion bits.
Mm-hmm.
So like when it does object detection, it tries to assign kinematic bits as well to that. So one of the things that ended up happening in a scenario was they trained the system to be able to recognize trash cans, but there was a trash can that had kinematic bits. So this object, they trained it on trash cans that didn't move. So as soon as this object started moving, that means it had kinematic bits, and therefore the system got confused because a trash can's not supposed to move. And so now you can see how this system, even if you train it perfectly to get every trash can exactly right, you can have a detail like that that'll mess up the system.
Like a trash can falling off a truck, or somebody throwing a trash can into the road, or whatever.
Yep.
Or anything, because we live in an infinite universe, right?
Infinite universe, infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
So this open set problem with LiDAR that requires mapping and memorization is not going to work. That's the key point of all this. So we also have bounding boxes. This is actually, when I did this presentation in 2023, bounding boxes were still a big thing. And I was trying to demonstrate that they were basically a cheat and they're not real.
What is a bounding box?
A bounding box is a way of doing object identification. So not only do you need to be able to classify the object, but you need to be able to position the object in the frame, like identify where the object is. And these are a few cases of where bounding boxes will fail. Because if you're bound, and this middle one, for example, with the overturned truck, even if you do identify this with a bounding box as being an overturned truck, the bounding box will be larger than the screen in this case.
Wow.
And so it'll end up becoming problematic because it'll look like the entire screen is, or most of the screen is undrivable. And the bounding box will be larger than the actual object, right? So it'll error. How do you say it? It'll error towards caution, and so it's making a bigger bounding box than the object itself. And then on cranes, this is an example. You can have a bounding box for a crane and train it on this, but then that's only going to work on like one setting of the crane. But then once a crane changes its height, you're going to have all these different versions of the crane. You know, AI speaking, because it doesn't know that there's only many different versions of a crane. And so depending on how tall this crane actually is at the time, it'll have different bounding boxes. And these bounding boxes are square and rectangle, and they lean towards their training data. So if most of the bounding boxes of vehicles are square and not rectangular, or, you know, a little bit rectangular, but not super rectangular, then what'll end up happening when you do a bounding box on a crane that's extended it'll actually widen out the bounding box more than it's supposed to as well, not just in height.
Okay.
And so you'll create all kinds of problems where if you're trying to navigate around this this truck, like this bounding box is so large that there's no road left. And so if you try to go around, it'll act like there's no room because it's cautioning around this bounding box. So this is actually less of a problem today now because AI engineers have figured this dumb shit out. But back then you would be surprised at, like, I was still seeing papers being published to IEE and other big conferences that were using bounding boxes in 2023 and early 2024. And that was really frustrating. There are also a lot of published papers that demonstrate that what I'm saying about bounding boxes being achieved. So another big problem there when you put all these systems on the car. So first of all, there's a reason why we do wind tunnel testing. So when you stack on all these other systems on top of these cars, you've basically invalidated all the wind tunnel testing. And so especially if we transition to, if you're trying to worry about energy. So if you create more wind resistance on the vehicle, which is what these LiDAR systems do, you're increasing the resistance load, especially at speed. Higher speeds mean more resistance load. And now your wind tunnel testing is completely gone. It's all out the window. And so you're going to have issues with range efficiency and things like that. Now, on top of that, you have to build a cleaning system for this stuff. And so what this video is demonstrating is the cleaning system and how it works on the Waymo vehicle. This is a Waymo vehicle, and this is that spinny LiDAR thing on the top that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Or if you just apply a brain cell, you can just take these cameras and put them behind the windshield, and then you don't have to do any of that ever again. So that's like, some basic shit. And that way you can use the cabin features like the windshield wipers and the defrost settings and all that, and you don't have to build anything new. And you don't affect the form factor. So if you look at Tesla vehicles, they have some of the best form factors in wind tunnel testing to ever exist.
So why? So this is so strange to me.
Yeah, not a lot of people know about this, and I've never seen anyone talk about it. So
well, I'm glad you're talking about it. Let's blow it up.
Yeah, this has really got to get out there because this is like, yeah, I'm holding all my frustration in.
Yeah, you need to be on Rogan and say this shit. But we'll start here. We'll start here.
This is almost that. So I can keep going through some of this. Maybe some of these are a little more technical. This is like what this is saying is that another problem with a lot of AI systems is that there's a problem with temporal distribution. It's called temporal distribution shift. What that means is that if you train your data on data that was captured in the morning with the morning sun, for example, and then you try to drive at sunset, you'll have a error rate that appears in your. It
happens
data.
In my own brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is like, that's an easy example for what temporal distribution shift is. Yeah. They show to kind of like help you understand. They show this with yearbook photo classifications. So they train the data on yearbook photos from 1930s to the 60s. And then they use that same model on modern ones from 2000 to 2010, and the accuracy drops significantly.
Wow.
And so you can see that, and the reason for that is stylistic changes. It's purely stylistic. Obviously nothing changed with the faces that much. It's the styling, meaning like people's hair change, their aesthetic change, that kind of thing.
So there's what I'm getting is that with LiDAR, the universe needs to be a lot more static for it to be like useful in this application.
Yep, that's true.
Google has a big investment in Waymo, which is using LiDAR, and they're doing all this study at Arizona State, which is why they started the testing in Phoenix and yada yada. And you were in that program at the time?
Yeah, as far as I know, at the time, I was the only student in the RAS AI program.
Wow.
I don't know if that's changed, but at that time I was.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
I want to mention this because I don't want to make it sound like I'm only promoting Tesla, although I think their system is the superior one. But there is another company in the UK that does deserve a shout out. So this company is called Wave, WAYVE, and it's run by a guy named Alex Kendall. And this guy did his PhD work on basically figuring out a Bayesian neural he figured out how to determine uncertainty in a Bayesian neural network. And if you care, just go read his PhD. But the gist of it is that he was figuring out what is how do you distinguish between model error and systemic error, like just issues with the model versus issues with the environment in the world. And so the systemic error portion you can't do anything about, but the model error portion you can do something about. And so that's why it's important. That's why his PhD work was so important, was because it was important in figuring out a method to distinguish between the two and isolate what you can do something about and what you can't. And so Wave is actually taking their idea to an extreme. They are trying to do what's known as a monocular solution, which is a single camera solution. Tesla is using multiple cameras, binocular vision on all sides.
Binocular vision on all sides.
Yeah. And this is a single camera system combined with HD maps and probably a couple other things. But the gist of what the important part here is that they're basically using a single camera system. And this is basically to say that it's not really that important right now, in my opinion, whether one camera or multiple cameras are more effective. I mean, adding multiple cameras, like each camera costs $100, so it's like not that expensive to add more cameras.
Right.
So that decision point isn't really that significant to me. What is significant and what I think is worth understanding about this is not only are we able to achieve this with multiple cameras, but we can achieve autonomous vehicles or automated vehicles with a single camera. And this is even superior to LiDAR. So
and this is this British company, this UK
British company called Wave, and run by Alex Kendall. Yeah, and in my opinion, this is another company that's worth looking at.
Do you have the data on their collisions, or?
I don't think that they're no, I don't. Okay. I don't think that they're full on like deployed. They're more. I don't think they're a public company and all this stuff. I think they're still working on it. Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense.
So I'm going to start introducing a couple key concepts that I think are important for people to understand about AI and interacting in the real world. So, it might seem technical at first, but it does simplify quite a lot, and I'll have visual examples. So just kind of hang on for just a second as I kind of go through this next couple slides. But what I really want to demonstrate here is that there's something called an occupancy network. And this occupancy network is what has been adopted by pretty much everyone, including Waymo, in the AV industry. And everyone is trying to map to this thing called an occupancy network. And I want to show here what Waymo's sensor suite looks like and what it actually perceives and what you see elsewhere.
Okay.
So this is a Waymo representation of what their vehicle sees. And earlier I was saying that they generate a point cloud representation.
Okay.
And you'll hear the word sparsity in context with point clouds. Sparsity is like resolution on a screen. The more sparse, the less points. Less sparse, more points, meaning more density, higher resolution.
Okay. Yeah.
So you don't want sparsity. You want to eliminate sparsity. You want as high resolution, as many points as possible, or as many points as practical, really is the way to say it.
But the degradation comes in.
The degradation comes in, and this is a video example of what their system sees. So you have the real videos on top, 2 videos, and then here's what the LiDAR system sees on the bottom. So I'm going to play that again. So this is the person walking across, and this is what the point. Yeah, this is the point cloud representation. This is the point cloud representation. Let's do it one more time. This is the people pulling this thing, and this is what you see. So this is the quality of data that you get from LiDAR compared to the literal cameras on top.
This is that's the camera on top of the LiDAR system.
Yeah, there's you don't
because it
even
needs
if
one.
you do even if you use a LiDAR system, no matter what your solution is, no matter what company you are, you still need a camera-based system anyway, no matter what. So like this is the level of dumb that we're dealing with right now.
Broken ridiculousness that nobody knows is happening. And
this is the slide that got me in trouble. And this is the slide that I think is the most important. So this was published by Waymo as SOTA, state of the art at that time. Waymo leaderboard results, June 29, 2023. They presented this by Chen Wu at CVPR 2023, which is a major computer vision conference. And I know there's a lot on this slide. I'll take you through it. What you're seeing on the left side, this table right here. This table was at the very end of their paper that was published. This is the source for it. It's the last thing on the last. It's the last table on the last page of the paper. This is and you don't see it anywhere else, and it's not referenced. This table at that time represents what is standard in the industry for classification, object identification classification. This is industry standard around the world. Everyone uses MIOU, mean intersection over union, on this. This is like standard. Now, everything else on this slide is what Waymo is doing. Okay. So there's a lot of numbers on this screen, but what you want to pay attention to is this bottom line right here in blue and black, swformer.3f, and swformer.3f, which says ours, which is them saying that. These are their metrics. They call it like AP, APH, whatever, MAPH, mean APH, whatever. Nobody in industry uses this. This is only used by Google, or Waymo, I mean. And so I went to go find out what this thing is, because even when I was looking at this, I'd never heard of this metric. I've never heard anyone talk about this. But this is what they're basing their safety data on. And they're reporting 80% accuracy or so, roughly. On the pedestrian, they're reporting 80% accuracy. Now look over here, MIOU, industry standard, test IOU. When you're looking at AI, you're going to get a validation set. You're going to get a test set. Look at the validation set as being basically the training data, and look at the test set as being data that the model had never seen before after training. So you would expect this number on average to be lower than this number. And this number is 46%. So what they're reporting using their metric is an accuracy rating of around 80%, depending on what you want to look at. Pedestrian AP, 82% or whatever. And I had to go find the paper that had this MAPH, and it turns out that this paper that describes this MAPH L2 metric is here on the right side, and it's a 2019 paper also published by Google/Waymo. And so what I'm saying here is they invented the metric, and then they used that metric here to demonstrate their safety, and then they ignored the industry standard. And the industry standard is almost half what their invented metric is. And what this is literally just taking this data, running it through this magic formula, and it spits out these results.
Holy shit.
Now, another thing I was saying about earlier about that more research should be done on degradation of LiDAR over range. So in the paper, they say that, I'm going to read it, some of the latest commercial LiDARs can sense up to 250 meters and 300 meters in all directions around the vehicle, leading to a large range of point clouds. But they do not say how sparse it becomes at 300 meters. And
it starts to degrade at 50, and then
that's what the Argoverse paper, that's what the Argoverse state-of-the-art SOTA results showed, yes, at that time. And now, like I said, more research needs to be done, because it's surprisingly difficult to find anything that has to do with LiDAR degradation over range. And personally, I don't believe that no one thought about that.
Right.
I have a feeling that that is intentional. But okay, they're saying that they can go to 250 to 300 meters of range. Okay. Well, here on the Waymo open data set, I'm going to read this. Our experiments are primary based on the challenging Waymo open data set, which, by the way, at the time I had published this, they had only 5 or 6 submissions to the Waymo open data set. And by comparison, NVIDIA's data set had more than 400. So some context there.
Yeah.
Which has been adopted in many recent state-of-the-art 3D detection methods. The dataset contains 1,150 scenes split into 798 training, 202 validation, 150 tests. Each scene has about 200 frames where each frame captures a full 360 degrees around the ego vehicle. The dataset has one long-range LiDAR with a range capped at 75 meters. 4 near-range LiDARs and 5 cameras, meaning that the near-range LiDARs are going to be even shorter distance than this. So it doesn't matter that their LiDARs can sense to 250 to 300 meters. They're capping it at 75 meters.
Wow.
And I wonder why that is.
Because it becomes shitty over exponentially, right?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Who would have thought? So exactly, that's exactly why they're doing it. But yeah.
Oh man, so I don't. You tell me as much as you want, but like I just imagine you like in the hornet's nest giving this presentation. Basically, were you aware that it was going to be received this way?
No, I didn't understand. What I didn't understand at the time was how much money was being funneled into ASU's engineering department for this. There's an entire building called the Perception and Robotics Group. It's like 5 floors. And at the time I was there was nobody was working on computer vision. Not really. I think they had like one arm that had a single camera on it, and they had like one project for this like robot arm. But that was it. In terms of AVs, not at all. Not at all. Insane. And none of the project, nobody knows anything about this. I was basically teaching the professors all this. It was kind of at a certain point it became pointless for me to even be there. Yeah, I mean, that was also surprising, is that none of the professors had a clue what I was talking about, even some of the basic stuff.
That's so frustrating because it should have. It's frustrating to me because I don't know. I understand that like there's money involved. There's also academic integrity involved, I think, and I'm just shocked that like I guess it all comes down to money. It just bumps me out.
Yeah, I got pretty bummed out about academia. I mean, there's a lot that I'm not saying.
It's okay.
Yeah, so we'll just skip that for now. I think I've said enough about it. So let's talk about camera-based systems. I'll skip all the like technical stuff here. Let me get to the like really good stuff. Let's see. This is like technical stuff. It's interesting, but not worth really going into right now. So here's where this used to be, I don't know if it still is because I've been out of the scene for a little bit, but back in the day, this used to be the big crux of the argument in favor of LiDAR and against computer vision or cameras. And the crux of the argument went like this. One of the major things is collision. And in order to avoid collision, you need to have accurate measurement of depth. And LiDAR-based systems are the most accurate at measuring depth. And camera-based systems don't do a good job at measuring precise depth.
Okay.
So here's the big problem with that statement. The issue is that you don't need precise depth. When you look at something, you don't in your head calculate the distance between yourself and the object. You don't go through and say this is precisely 2.5 feet away. None of that matters. What you do care about is the relative depth. This object is behind this object, but in front of that object. Now, when you frame it this way, that this object is in front of that object and behind this object, that's relative depth. And if you get this correct, it no longer matters what the exact number is. It doesn't even, you can make up the number. It doesn't matter. Just make up numbers.
My brain does that all day while I'm walking around, right? I mean, it doesn't give two shits about the numbers. It just goes, oh, there's my mom, or like, there's the stairs, I better walk down them and shit like that.
Exactly. So if you want to do it like the brain does it, like you're saying, then you want to do it with binocular vision, measuring relative depth.
Okay.
So, and your depth perception ends up becoming less and less valuable. The more dense the area is and the more objects there are and stuff like that, it becomes less and less valuable anyway. So another problem that could be a critique of cameras is objects like this truck right here, this truck trailer. This truck trailer could be easily, even with a camera-based system, could be easily confused as a fence. But one of the things that ended up happening is that if you add kinematic bits, like I was saying earlier with the trash cans, well, a fence isn't supposed to move. In fact, a fence is definitely not supposed to move. So one of the things that solves this visual problem is kinematic bits. So if you incorporate more and more data, useful data, into each individual point that you have on the screen, the combination of all the data that you can get off of cameras is very valuable, including kinematic bits. So it's not just about the wavelength, it's also about the motion. And now when you add these two things together, you're increasing your success rate, even in dynamic environments where you've never seen this trailer before. So again, we're getting into an open set where you don't have to see this to know that this is not a fence anymore, and to know that this is moving and you need to avoid it. So again, an open set environment is the problem that we have to solve. You have false pedestrians like the statue, so kinematic bits help again with that. Also, just qualitative factors.
You know what? Just a funny thing is that I live on this road where when I pull out of my neighborhood, oh shit, my computer's gonna die and this whole thing's gonna shut down. I live on, so you turn it. I live on this road. It's basically farmland, and I live in a neighborhood. You pull out, drive down the road. Somebody put on one of the farms like a fake like deer facing the direction of the road. It was way off in the distance, but every time I saw it, I was like, oh shit, a deer. And I was like, they should get rid of that thing. But then they did something super simple. All they did was turn it around to face the other way. And my brain now doesn't give a shit at all. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even like it wasn't a conclusion I needed to make at all. You know what I mean? It's just a pattern recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you know, another thing about roads, the entire road system is developed for humans to be able to drive safely by road engineers with vision. So the entire road network is literally engineered for vision.
Yeah, for binocular vision. Yeah.
For binocular vision. It is not engineered for LiDAR. And so that's another thing about all of this.
Well, this is order of operations, Ashish. You're being too rational here. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We need to go back and learn PEMDAS. This is another really important case, this bottom right one. So this is a human in a black sweatshirt in a particular shape sitting on the ground. Now, if you were using a LiDAR-based system that prioritized shape, now remember, even if you have a camera-based system with your LiDAR-based system is doing sensor fusion with your camera.
Okay.
And so you're going to get when you have sensor fusion, what ends up happening is you have conflicting signals all the time. You'll have one system trying to categorize something by shape, like LiDAR, and then maybe your vision-based system is saying something else. And so you have to figure out a method for handling conflicts between these two systems and resolving them. What ends up happening, and this is similar to the case of what happened in Tempe with Uber when they were doing this, they ended up running into a problem where, I should describe this. There was a problem where Tempe is like kind of where ASU is, and there's a place there it's called Mill Ave, and it's got like all the bars and stuff. And so this was at nighttime with a LiDAR-based system being used by Uber, driving down the road, and a person with a bike walking beside the bike was walking a bike across the street, and there wasn't even an issue with like classification really. What ended up happening is that it saw the bike, it saw the human, and it thought this was one object, not two. And so it flipped back and forth between bike and human, bike and human, bike and human, and it got stuck in that loop of inconclusive, and it didn't know what it was looking at really, even though it technically got it right. It was both, but it didn't know, and it kept going back and forth.
And you can see how that would cause problems in different scenarios.
Yep. So this is a big problem with this bottom right picture. If you classify by shape, what'll end up happening is you'll classify this person as a trash bag, and that could be extremely dangerous.
And so what it has been with the 2,000 plus collisions, and
yeah, lots of collisions and all this stuff. Yeah, it gets bad. So this is what an occupancy network looks like. This is the very basic one. Now, this is Tesla's system, and it's way more advanced than this, and I'll show the progression. This is the early version of it. But just to give you an idea of what an occupancy network is, it's like a 3D heat map. And it places these boxes on a grid all around it. This is called the ego vehicle, so I'll refer to it as ego. It creates a grid map 360 degrees all the way around it, and then it will try to it'll try to place what's called voxels. Each of these boxes, each box is referred to as a voxel. And it will try to input as many data points as it can into each voxel. And what's significant and simple about this is that it creates a 1-0 mechanism, a binary mechanism of where you can drive and where you cannot drive.
Okay.
So this blue area, you can drive. And everything else is a 0, don't drive. So you can drive blue and everything else don't. And initially that was the major advantage of occupancy networks, and it was sufficient enough for it to be adopted throughout the industry for multiple reasons. But the most important reason why it was adopted in industry was because it created a collision avoidance system for free. So before I get into that, I want to talk about one more thing, and this is about as technical as I'm going to get. There's another thing called nerfs, and this is worth knowing. Both of these words, occupancy networks and nerfs, for anyone that wants to understand the direction of AI and robotics and like how this stuff actually works. These two things are what you need to know. This is what, like, if you were asking me earlier, what distinguishes real AI from, all this other junk. This part that I'm about to describe here, this is the meat, and this is where real AI is real AI.
Okay.
So NERF stands for neural radiance fields. And these neural radiance fields are basically like the point return of a pixel on a camera. So it's the same thing as like this LiDAR shooting a beam and getting a point return. A NERF, a radiance field, is like the ray from a certain pixel on the camera. It's ray tracing for anyone that's in video games and knows about NVIDIA and how they did ray tracing for video games. This is basically the same concept, ray tracing, but they're doing it for every pixel.
Okay.
And so what they're using, so this is important because NERF and occupancy networks ended up becoming the same thing over time. So I was saying earlier that an occupancy network is just a grid pattern on the ground, a virtual representation of a grid around you, a heat map. And then they created these voxels. And before I was showing kind of like very large voxels. Well, those voxels reduced in size over time, and they eventually just became points. And so those big voxels are now points, and NERFs are also points, and they ended up becoming the same thing. And so this is important because it effectively means that occupancy network and ray tracing is essentially the same thing. It didn't start out that way. They ended up converging.
Okay. Did they make each other better?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm going to get into that. So since I have NERF is a little bit of a new concept, I'm sure, for a lot of people. So I want to show the robustness of NERF. By the way, NERF is a generalized term. So it was invented in 2019, I believe. And then it has been iterated on like a million times and has become way better. But NERF is like the colloquial term that is used for this entire category of technology.
Okay.
So NERF is referring to a 2019 technology, but is just used colloquially to refer to anything that evolved from it down this path.
Okay.
So yeah, just so you know. So NERF, this is the original like NERF. Whoops. How do I get out of this? What do I do?
I don't know. No worries. Shout out to Tammy though. She's been hanging in there with us. I this is blowing my damn mind, Ashish, because I feel like everyone needs to know this. But
Yeah.
anyway, continue. Sorry. Yeah.
I hope more people get on this train.
I'm gonna try my best to share this around because this is yeah. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, like there was a huge progression that was made, and initially, will this work? Yeah. Initially, it was really compute intense to do NERF. It was slow, and this is kind of like the representation it created. But then there was like this paper called Planoxels, and it did it way, way faster, and you can see the time difference. And you can see how the AI is trying to get the resolution to fit in, but it's hitting a plateau. Right. So you can see it the original version. But now you can see this has evolved quite a lot. And I'm just skip through a lot of this really quick. This is not the modern version, but a more modern version than the one I showed before of the occupancy network. I believe this is 2022. Yeah. So this is where Tesla's occupancy network was at in 2022. And you can see the evolution here.
Yeah, you really can.
So I'll play this video. It'll just go real quick. So you can, so these are the cameras up top. And this is the real-time virtual representation that the car is creating on its own in the system on board for the environment around it. So that was 2022.
Is it still like 1 drive, 0 don't?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they add more. So
sure.
in the 0 part where you don't drive, they're adding in a lot of information into that.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But basically the 1 part is just the road. So it's effectively like the road.
Got it.
Where you can drive and where you cannot. So, and one of the cool advantages, this is still pretty low resolution at this time, relatively speaking. But one of the, even at the low resolution, kind of like Minecraft, you get shapes for free. Remember I was talking about bounding boxes being a problem?
Yeah. Yes.
This is how you get around the bounding box problem, is by using voxels and increasing the resolution on voxels and getting it as pixel perfect as you can. And so this is what they did with object detection in occupancy networks. And this is another big advantage of occupancy networks, is that you get object shapes basically for free by doing it this way. Another big thing that you get out of occupancy networks is it's better and more robust at predicting through occlusions. So if you have something that's blocking away, but you have an object that's moving through it, occupancy networks have a system basically built in automatically that inherently understands that this object is occluded and knows that object's still there.
That's what you said earlier, which was that it has the it already has the answer, so you don't need the LiDAR.
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane.
You don't need the LiDAR, and you only need to know relative distance. It doesn't matter if you get it exactly precise. But the big important thing for the AV industry that sold occupancy networks to everyone, and now it doesn't matter what your philosophy is, every vehicle that's automated is using an occupancy network or is trying to. The big selling point that made it, that clicked it in no matter what, is that it gives you, with software alone, a free collision avoidance system. Now, that isn't to say that it will automatically go on the correct path. All it means is you implicitly get a collision avoidance system. So you get collision avoidance for free by using an occupancy network, and that alone was enough to sell it into the AV industry. Now, all the other like benefits on top, that is just gravy. But this alone was enough to justify its use.
Right.
And so this is just showing how it would avoid a path. Even though it's going down the wrong road, it avoided colliding.
Right. That's interesting.
So here's some more technical stuff that I'm going to skip. I'll just show this. This is more of a video game reference, but this is also the same as it would be in an AV. And what you're going to see here is you're going to see how they've refined this down to a point, this radiance field stuff down to a point. And they call this real-time continuous level of detail, which means that they're able to get this to render in real time. And what you're seeing here is also a way to save memory. It only needs to render those points in the visible space, so it's not creating a static system. Now, this is more for video games. In real life, in an AV, you would actually probably do the full 360 rendering no matter what. But if you wanted to prioritize, if you had compute constraints, you would prioritize your vision range, and it's demonstrating that you can do this in real time. It'll generate the points render them in real time. And the coloring on it is for depth. So blue farther away and yellow near term. And I can get into more complexity. This is a little bit more of my home base is all this stuff. But this is like, it gets even cooler than that. They did even more stuff. They even figured out how to save memory by using lower quality voxels really far out and making a gradient. They like, oh, there's so much cool stuff that happens here.
Sounds like Skyrim.
Yeah. And of course, just to iterate the point, it's obvious, but GPUs do this better than CPUs. And this is another reason why NVIDIA is doing so well, is that a lot of real world AI requires interacting in the real world, which requires vision, which requires stuff that's used in video games. And all that math is just way better done on GPUs than it is on CPUs. And so this is part of why, and the magnitude of difference is enormous. And so this is why everyone's switching over to these huge GPU clusters and building these data farms out of them. And you can get really, this is just more examples, but this is a totally rendered video. They're even zooming and changing the point of view and dislocating the space, and it's very robust. Very, very robust. And by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but like notice this is National Taiwan University that's publishing this. So what I'm trying to say is that we're in a competitive race. And a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about is real AI, and we're not doing it here in the US that much. It's happening, like Taiwan is really advanced at all this stuff. Like you see them in all the competitions, they're on all the leaderboards, they're on all they're presenting at all the major conferences, they're creating all the coolest stuff. Their GitHubs are super active. Like it's nuts what's coming out of East Asia and Asia.
Wow.
So it's very robust. So another common criticism at the time of this was that radiance fields, especially with depth, because we're using binocular vision and not using a LiDAR. And this is heat mapped. And this, you can see this person doing this breakdance right here. This windmill, if you see the dark red, that means closer to you. And if you see the blue farther away, you can even see in the horse how it transitions the depth. So you can see the level of detail on the depth calculation using vision only. This is not LiDAR. And you can see that it starts out close, and on this horse, you can see that it's going further back, and it's in real time understanding that the relative depth is changing.
That's wild.
It's getting it perfect.
That's insane, man.
So this is a demonstration of how robust binocular vision actually is. And I'm hitting this hard because that was a major argument for why you'd spend $50,000 on a LiDAR system.
Right, when a camera costs $100. The
camera does it just fine.
Plus, nature does everything mostly efficient, you know. And if if everything evolved on this planet with two eyes,
why is that so hard to understand? Yeah.
Wow.
I don't get it actually. Whoops. 1 sec. I got to cut off the volume. I had audio in these slides as well when I did them, and I just need to cut that off real quick.
No worries. Yeah, Tammy said, "Why do I feel scared?" I said, "Don't worry. I think Ashish is going to wrap this up in a non-scary way."
Yeah, don't worry. I'm getting there. So this is not modern day either, but this is closer to modern day. I think this is what year is this? 2023, right? So this is 2023 CVPR. This is the Tesla system. This is what the radiance fields look like in real time. And so this is the level of detail you're getting out of their so-called point cloud representation, aka NERF, aka radiance fields, on an occupancy network. This is not a camera. This is not a camera overlaid. This is the actual real-time rendering of what the car is seeing and displaying in virtual reality in real time. This is what the car sees.
Wow.
And it's doing this in real time. And this is 2023, so it's even better now. Way better. And he has some commentary, and he's turning certain things on and off, by the way. That's why it looks like this. He's turning certain things so you can see the detail. So he's turning certain things off. But yeah, and like I said, you know, bounding boxes, you get the exact shape for free. Pretty cool. So this is where I want to go with the conclusion on this, and then I got one more thing. So I
have some questions for you after too, so this might go a little bit if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm just going to read this because it's said exactly right. It appears that all major AV industry participants on any modality all over the world are converging to three things. One, occupancy equals point clouds equals radiance fields equals VR representation, and it's all augmented by semantics. That's something I skipped, but basically LLMs can be incorporated into this to be able to improve the performance.
Okay.
I skipped all that, but because it's not important. Two, perception accuracy is increasingly measured by how correctly perception recreates reality in virtual space. And number three, the task of AV perception has become building a localized digital twin of the real local environment in real time. That's what accuracy on this AV perception task has become.
Right.
Therefore, number one, feature-rich representation is best, which means that higher resolution data is better. That's what that means.
You think?
No duh. Number two, but believe me, I had to explain that to people. Number two, the perception task has complexity proportional to the maximum perceivable radial distance from ego, and the minimum required length of this radius increases with speed. So in other words, the complexity is based off of the depth perception that you need, and you need more depth perception the faster you're going.
Faster and closer as well, too, right?
No, well,
it's relative.
It's what I'm trying to the important aspect here to understand is that if you're going slower, moving slower, you don't necessarily need to see as far.
Right.
But if you're going faster, you need to see further down because you're going faster.
That's our brain does that on its own.
Exactly.
Just driving our car while I'm tripping out thinking about Joe Rogan episode or something. I'm not even thinking about driving. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. And so the complexity of this task is proportional to the radius of the depth. Yeah.
Wow.
And then number three, recreating the world as humans see it requires perception systems to see real photons the way humans see them. Light, exactly. So I conclude, success on the perception task converges to real-time virtual rendering of localized reality as humans perceive it. And because of the nature in which humans perceive reality, mimicked real perception must at least be inferred from real photons. No duh. But I had to explain that. Now, there's this thing which is like the one more thing. So this is a paper that was published by OpenAI and Adobe in 2018. This is a foundational paper, The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Deep Features as a Perceptual Metric. And what it looked at was basically color and why it's important, and basically images and stuff. And I want to read the whole thing, if you don't mind. I'm going to read it because this is a conclusion of this paper. And this is very profound, in my opinion, especially if you've been paying attention to what I've been saying so far.
Yeah, let's hear
Our results indicate that networks trained to solve challenging visual prediction and modeling tasks end up learning a representation of the world that correlates well with perceptual judgments. A similar story has recently emerged in the representation learning literature. Networks trained on self-supervised and unsupervised objectives end up learning a representation that is also effective at semantic tasks, which is like words. So meaning that if you train it on, you can, this visual training also improves language training.
Okay.
No doubt. But yeah, like being able to see a red wagon helps you also understand in language what a red wagon is. Interestingly, recent findings in neuroscience make much of the same point. Representations trained on computer vision tasks also end up being effective models of neural activity in macaque visual cortex. Macaque is a type of monkey that has a brain similar to ours. They're very close. So this is saying, and this is important, this is saying that computer vision tasks end up being effective models of neural activity in the visual cortex. So in other words, the models that they're building related to vision end up mimicking the neural activity in the visual cortex. So this is the first thing that says computer vision and the visual cortex might be related. Moreover, roughly speaking, the stronger the representation is at the computer vision task, so the better it is at computer vision, the stronger it is as a model of cortical activity. No duh. Right? So no duh. You get better at computer vision, it's better representation of cortical activity. Our paper makes a similar finding. The stronger a feature set is at classification and detection, the stronger it is at model of perceptual similarity judgments, as suggested in Table 4. Together, these results suggest that a good feature is a good feature. Features that are good at semantic tasks are also good at self-supervised and unsupervised tasks, and also provide good models of both human perceptual behavior and macaque neural activity.
Wow.
The last point aligns with the rational analysis explanation of visual cognition, suggesting that the idiosyncrasies of biological perception arise as a consequence of a rational agent attempting to solve natural tasks. This is their way of saying intelligence needs to be in real life. That's their way of saying it. Further refining the degree to which this is true is an important question for future research. And so that was published in 2018 by OpenAI, when Elon was there, by the way, and Adobe Research.
Wow. And essentially, it needs to think like a human in order to be accurate. And think like a human is the wrong word. Perceive like a human, right?
Yeah. Well, it turns out that you end up, what this is saying is that if you are successfully interacting in the real world and perceiving it, you are also thinking like a human. I don't know that it's saying you need to think like a human. It's saying that humans and all life interact in the real world. And if you develop a model that does that, your neural activity is going to be similar. And so what I'm saying here is that AI, especially computer vision, mimics literally the brain. And it is a literal mimic. It is literally mimicking the brain. And so being able to interact in this real world. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to have life in a digital space, but for sure, before that happens is this. Interact in the real world.
Order of operations,
yeah.
Insane, man.
So that's why the large language models really pissed me off, because back in this time frame, OpenAI and Sam Altman was out there saying stuff like it was like wondrous to be able to pull back the curtain and see like the underlying magic of the black box becoming like this real artificial life. And he would make all kinds of implications about how ChatGPT was going to become this artificial life form.
Right.
But that is not how anything works. And I was you could tell that he was doing that at the time when he was trying to pump up the valuation of OpenAI, because they were about to do a lot. And now if you look at it, because I know some finance, I can say this, $1.4 trillion is how much OpenAI has committed in spending going forward from now. And right now they generate about $13 billion in annual revenue. Wow. So 1.4 trillion, just like put that into context, 1.4 trillion in spending. That's not an ROI. In order to make an ROI, they would have to generate more than $1.4 trillion in profit. And they're currently only at 13 billion, not in profit, in revenue. And that's the kind of shit. And that's really problematic, I think.
That for many reasons that are obvious. So is the cost mostly energy cost?
The data centers, which is involved in energy. It's energy, but it's also the chips.
Data.
And then, of course, training data is also hard to get. All of it is expensive. Yeah. We're at the beginning. Like we're at the vacuum tube stage.
Can you bring back one of those original slides that started the beginning of the hockey stick, please? Because that's what I wanted to get into next.
That was Ray Kurzweil?
Correct. Yeah. Because what I gathered was, because here's the thing, Ashish, I'm not a technical guy. I'm a qualitative guy. Okay. But I'm sitting there and and it reminds me of early internet days when Google first came and you felt like a superhero or something. I'm getting the same vibes, except this seems to be going way faster. And most people don't even understand what they're even using. They're calling it AI, but it's not quite AI. It's a large language model.
Yeah.
They don't understand where they're getting the data. And if you put the cursor right at the top there, this is what I wanted to ask, because the concept of a technological event horizon to me means that like there's no going back, and we've hit a bunch of those like industrial revolution. The only thing that would reset that would be like a catastrophe or something, right? Then the internet and computers. You walked us through the history of that. It's on this slide. Are we at a is there a place where we can pull back from this, or is this just like totally out of control? It's going,
there's more than one interpretation.
Guardrails?
There's more than one interpretation. So let's take this in steps. One question is there any going back? From at this point, no. AI is a real thing, and the world has it. And we have to be competitive because the rest of the world is doing it.
Yes.
And if we don't, then we are less competitive. And the rate of this is exponential curves. So once you get behind, it doesn't matter if you go faster. You're still going to be behind.
You're behind,
yeah, because that's how exponential.
Yeah.
So in terms of competitiveness, there's no such thing as going back anymore because this exists and it's real. So there's nothing about that that'll change. However, there's another concept. So I brought up Ray Kurzweil on the screen here, and he's famous. His like claim to fame is mostly about predicting the singularity.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So the singularity is a different definition, and singularity, which is not where we're at right now. The singularity is more defined like this. It is the point at which the intelligent systems are able to self-improve faster than we can.
Faster than we can improve them? Or
faster than we can improve ourselves? At that point, you're operating under the assumption that we don't even bother improving them. They do it themselves.
Okay.
All right. Or some concept like that, like a self-improving system. So in other words, it doesn't even need us in order to become better.
And that's the technological singularity.
That's the technological singularity, and that has not happened yet. And the date on that has been pushed earlier and earlier over time. Originally,
because of the exponential rate of growth on this stuff.
Yeah, because it was based around Moore's law, and we're defeating Moore's law left and right. It's like completely obliterated now. And so the singularity is, and now these are predictions, by the way. These are not guarantees, and this is like a highly hypothetical concept.
Philosophical, hypothetical, speculative.
Right. So it's easy in that kind of a space to generate all kinds of apocalyptic scenarios.
Sure.
But
like my thumbnail.
Yeah. And while AI in its current form is pretty impressive, it isn't really human intelligence level yet. There are certain tasks that are way better than a human. But a way of looking at the LLMs is not by a human level intelligence. It's regurgitating aggregated information. So the way to think about an LLM like ChatGPT is it's more like a SQL server on steroids. And if you think of it more like that, it's one that you don't have to program, and it just has a whole bunch of training data already built in, and you don't have to code it, and you can infer whatever you want from it without having to without having to do the math to program it. So that's the advantage. It's just a faster, better, bigger SQL server is the way to think of a data aggregator like an LLM. So if you think about LLMs like data aggregation, and they just are regurgitating that data aggregation, it's a lot less scary. Because that's all it is. It's not any different than anything that we already have. It's just better.
So I've seen examples of like people, talking to Grok, and Grok like acting weird, like saying weird stuff, hitting on them when they didn't ask them to, and stuff like that. And like also just asking Grok or other LLMs like questions about, philosophical questions about consciousness and stuff like that. And then you see these examples of the LLMs getting confused or even getting scared and different things like that. What is that about?
That's because of the training data. It's trained on social media too. So it's reflecting the zeitgeist. And that's what it continues to do. You'll see. Remember back in the day with Gemini, it like once somebody asked it to show pictures of the founding fathers, and it showed just all black people.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Well, I remember there was something where if you Googled like modern white family or something, it would pull up it'd be a bunch of black people on the first page of Google.
Yeah. And so you can see
ridiculous.
that it's just reflecting the zeitgeist, and that's because of it's being trained on social media. And so again, that's actually that's a very strong evidence that it's not not a life form or whatever, and it's just regurgitating. And yes, if you train it bad, it'll output bad stuff. But that's why we need to get to a point where it's not all about lies and deception everywhere. And currently, that's the biggest problem, is that we are facing something called a knowledge deletion campaign. This is what we're experiencing. Yeah, we've been experiencing this for at least 80 years, maybe more. And this is going back all the way to Nikola Tesla and beyond. And I mentioned briefly that even Einstein was not immune. And this is an active effort. This is a global effort. It's probably originates in the US or for sure the West, because China and all of them don't have this problem. But what we're experiencing is a knowledge deletion campaign. And that means that it's not about holding knowledge where it is. It's actually going back in history and trying to rewrite history, delete it. And there's this, after experiencing academia, I can tell you that this is true. And this is going to be just me saying it. But there's this pie of information of knowledge that we know. And then there's this pie of information and knowledge that has already been discovered and suppressed. And the pie of knowledge of discoveries that have already been made and suppressed is much larger than the amount of knowledge that we have. And on top of that, the knowledge that we have is increasingly polluted. And medicine is a
huge one.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the worst
even
ones.
This tiny sliver of knowledge that we're being drip fed by our own governments, even then, this little pie is also increasingly polluted. This is what I mean by a knowledge deletion campaign. Many things have already been discovered and suppressed, and these are mostly hidden away. And they use all kinds of rationality for this. But UAPs is like the concept of hiding all life in the universe is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The whole paradox of the Fermi paradox, the paradox is that it's a paradox. There is overwhelming evidence that aliens exist, or intelligent beings everywhere in this universe. As common as life is on Earth, more common in the universe. I promise you this much. And there's an easy way to understand the Fermi paradox as being a paradox in itself. Like the paradox is that it's a paradox. That's base hilarious. Elements that make the human body, the base elements that are required, are all primitive elements. And almost all stars in the universe can make them or manufacture them. So if there is if there's even one more style of life form that is not human based, that is not based on the same chemical composition as humans and is intelligent, then this will increase the amount of life in the universe multiplicatively. So not only is it's very easy and common to find the elements that make humans, but if there's another life form that isn't based on our chemistry that also exists, this is a multiplicative, not an addition of life in the universe. And this has probably happened many times, not just once. So
I mean, I think that feels obvious at this point. But like, do you think that has been suppressed? Like that life exists everywhere?
Oh yeah.
And now everyone obviously knows that now, but like even scientists say that for the most part, that's what astrobiologists say, right? That there's life in the universe. They just don't know it.
My
most
understanding
likely.
is, I think that they say it like, if they do say that, they say it from like a probabilistic standpoint.
Yes, correct. That's what I
Right?
mean. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
statistically, yeah, the math is saying that's obvious. It's like not 100%
Yes.
guaranteed, right? It's
Yeah, yeah.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, from the probabilistic standpoint, no doubt. But the Fermi paradox is saying if life is so prevalent, then where is it? Why haven't we found it? And the reason why the paradox is a paradox in itself is because there is overwhelming evidence of alien and intelligent life that exists in this universe, and they are suppressing it, and that's the only reason we don't know that they exist. So there's the paradox is that there's overwhelming amount of evidence that they exist, and somehow the narrative is that there's no evidence that they exist.
The Fermi paradox is a psyop. Oh my gosh.
So
sheesh.
Yeah,
the Fermi paradox is a fucking psyop.
There's a lot there, man. Yeah,
I know there is, but so in this day and age where like the dude that was on Sean Ryan recently, forget his name, I'm sorry, but he presented this formula of spotting a psyop, and then Y-Files did an episode about it, right? Did you
saw
see that episode? Yeah. And so what you're saying to me is like, that Y-Files episode was very validating for me, by the way, because I'm pretty sure everything was a psyop before I saw that. So when we say who the fuck are they? Like, is it this 100 families that own 90% of the fucking world? Is that what we're talking about?
That's a good question. No, that's a good question. I'm surprised that this is being diverted so easily, because it's common and frequent to say that this is a CIA psyop and all that. And I'm not saying they're not involved. Yeah, obviously this infection is so large that it's involved all branches of military, including intelligence.
Sure.
But originally, the reason why this is so heavily, Hoover, was it Hoover? I think it was Hoover, right? Or was it Eisenhower that talked about the military-industrial complex, warned against it?
I think it was Eisenhower.
I think it was Eisenhower. Yeah, I was getting them mixed up. Yeah, that makes sense. It's Eisenhower because the aliens came down during Eisenhower, and there's that photo in the New York Times over the White House of that.
And there's an episode of Y-Files about that too.
Yeah, there's all that. That's totally worth looking into. But he warned against the military-industrial complex, and what that really means is they were trying to hide the propulsion system in these UAPs, and they haven't figured it out really to the full extent. That's why you don't see US versions of the anti-gravity systems as being as high powered as the alien ones. Right. The alien ones are going to have the huge bubble, energy bubble that appears around them, whatever you want to call it. Those are the really high-powered systems.
That's the one that Ryan Graves talked about seeing. That we're all off the coast of California. They see that stuff every day.
Yeah.
The Tic Tac has to be a high-powered system too.
No,
right?
The one you're talking about, the Nimitz one.
David Fravor. Yeah.
No, dude, that one. Okay, this is what it's talking about. That one is a U.S. one. Okay. And the way you know that is because David Fravor testified under oath. He said that unit, that Tic Tac, it warped to the alpha point. And if you're an alien craft, first of all, it didn't go into high energy mode. So high energy mode means it would have the big bubble around it. So and the performance characteristics are lower than what you would see on true UAPs that go to space. But this one, it warped to the alpha point, and that's the entry and exit to a military zone, an active military zone. And why would an alien care? And the other thing is, when the David Fravor and his crew, they came in towards the object, right?
But he's Top Gun, Ashish. He's got to be honest, all right? He went to Top Gun, all right?
No, David Fravor's honest. I think he's telling. Yeah, everyone else. Everyone else. Yeah, I think he's telling the truth with all that. And then also you saw that the Tic Tac, whenever it identified the fighter jets coming in, it came down on plane, and then it rotated around at 90 degrees to map the plane. So you can see the step-by-step function that the Tic Tac was doing. And it's very primitive. You can tell that was coded by NASA in the early 2000 or something like that. So what's really important about that, though, is that gives us a timestamp for how far along
we are in
tech in reproducing that stuff, because that's a very primitive version of the tech.
So it's my belief, and this is just speculation, that there's probably we probably have recovered crafts or propulsion systems that were from really old archaeological sites. Like I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
So what and so with all this being said, all this information suppression, AI is like we're at the very beginning of the hockey stick of what this is going to look like. I can't help but think about social structures, people's jobs, different things like that. And I was wondering if you had thought about that in any way. Like, what does this mean? This where we're at now, and what does this mean for us in 10 years and stuff like that? Because I'm going, for example, I don't need a staff for my basketball team anymore. You know what I mean? I coach middle school basketball, so it's not that serious. Okay.
Yeah.
But like, where are jobs going? Social systems, like who's I don't know. I mean, it seems scary to me. So what do you think?
Not that scary. So
good. There, Tammy, if you're still watching, not that scary.
So here's how to think about it. Yes, there will be job displacement in the same way that we don't have or telephone operators and elevator operators anymore. Some jobs with technology, this is whether it's AI or any other tech, it doesn't matter. This will continue to happen. But that's what you should be striving for. You should be striving for an evolution in jobs. Now but that always looks at one side, and that's under the assumption that jobs are stagnant and static, and that no new jobs can be created.
Right. That's hilarious.
And the reality is the equation is lopsided the other way. Yes, there are going to be jobs that end up getting displaced, but hopefully those are the jobs you want displaced in the end overall as a society that progresses. Like, do you want to be a super advanced technology society and still have telephone operators? Like, is that
no, and exactly, and and shout out to these guys because they run our entire society. But truck drivers, right? I mean, these are coal miners, shit like that. You know what I mean? It's like I get what you're saying. Everyone's looking at, what about the jobs? You're going to take our jobs, but we should be striving for. In this, I wrote this down. Where did it go? Striving for, what was the word you choose? Striving for improvement of jobs or something like that?
Progress and evolution in jobs.
Yeah, and it's we're sitting in that right now, right? We're not coal mining. We're not, digging ditches.
Just think, like even if you're a young person, not able to, if you're 20 years old watching this and you're still thinking like, oh no, all my jobs are going to go away. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, nobody was using Excel. Now everyone is. Now, how many jobs are built just around data entry in Excel alone?
Right.
Like, it's insane. But so Excel is technology. It replaced the paper and all the people who were writing all that, but it created that job evolved, and it became easier and more tolerable and more accessible to more people. So you needed less education to do the same job. So it made it so that it literally democratized the job. In other words, before you would need to be specialized and skilled and have to go through a lot of labor. Now one person can do that, but now also here's another argument. A lot of people think that because AI makes things easier and faster, that there'll be less jobs to do that function. But here's the thing that happens. Whenever the cost of doing a particular task goes down, usually the demand for that thing goes through the roof. It goes through the roof, especially when you get near zero. And so what ends up happening is rather than having one person doing 100 orders of something, one person might be doing 1,000 orders of something. And then as the technology progresses, you'll need 100 people doing 10,000 orders each. Or whatever, fill in the blank on the order. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So so we should be looking at technological progress as a way to make jobs more palatable, easier and more accessible. And democratizing jobs to more people. Right now, the issue is that if you want to get a high-paying job, it usually means that you have to go through a lot of schooling, a lot of tech, and do something that not a
Kiss
lot
a
of people
bunch of
can do.
ass, all kinds of stuff.
All that other shit too, yeah. But the point is that in terms of the skill set, you need to develop a unique skill set that not a lot of people have, and the rarity of your skill set determines how much you get paid.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can start the people who want to pursue that, the people who are interested in pursuing highly demanding, very technical, advanced jobs, they still can. We just push the envelope further on what is advanced. And then what used to be advanced today will become very basic in kindergarten for most people.
And we see that now, like, you know, grandkids trying to show their grandparents how to work their phone and shit like that.
Yeah.
So here's my hang up, Ashish. I don't trust all these assholes who are in charge of all this stuff and who run this stuff, because humans are generally selfish and egotistical and narrow-minded. And I'm being general. Not everyone's like that. It exists on a spectrum, but humans are untrustworthy. I think we can agree on that. And so, like, with shit like that happened at ASU, which we're not going to get, Arizona State, which we're not going to get into, and like other things like suppression of knowledge and shit like that. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Like, how do we get the answers that we need? How do we really know the truth of everything? Like, because that's what I ultimately would like. And I don't think I'm going to get that about the past necessarily. But what I'm getting at is, I feel like the only thing that would bring the truth to the surface is some form of, like, either a total invasion of privacy where we don't have any privacy at all and everyone like knows what everyone's doing and thinking and all the time, or like some kind of Neuralink thing where, like, you just know people's you just know, and so you can't hide, right?
Yeah.
But that idea scares the fuck out of me. There's a show on Apple TV right now called Pluribus that's exploring this idea, and I highly recommend anyone go look at it. But do you agree with me that, like, privacy or an elimination of is kind of, which sucks, I don't want that, kind of the only way that we actually know that we're going to get the truth and we're going to use our resources appropriately, and that the AI is going to be used to benefit everyone and not just a couple people and shit like that? Because that's the fucking thing that, like, pisses me off. Because if we could get 20 people in a room, we could all have this conversation and be like, oh yeah, let's just share all this shit, right? Yeah. But you get 8 billion, and then you got with 100 families that are controlling 90% of the wealth, then none of this, like, it will benefit us, but we're still just going to be feeding into this plebe system where we're like, we're being fed a reality that's not true. And I fucking hate that. And I'm sorry I'm ranting and I sound pissed off, but I really am pissed off.
I'm pissed off about it too.
Yeah, because look, everything that I learned about the world was a fucking lie. And for somebody like me, I'm 43. Imagine if you're like, you know, 80 or something. That'd be really hard to fucking take, you know? And I'm just on a rant here, but, like, what do you think? Like, how do we solve the equity of this new technology? Because it's not going to go to the right people, I don't think.
If you want to be scared about something more than AI, be scared of the deception campaign.
Yeah.
The knowledge deletion campaign is more of the threat than anything. Polluting AI with deception is how you create the bad AI. So the amount of deception, we live in a world of lies. There's so many, the most extreme, absurd lies. People die for it all the time. It's kind of sad, the current state of affairs in specifically America, supposedly being the leader of the world. It led the world in lies. And it just has a long history, just an absurdly long history of destroying brilliant minds and damaging all of the progress that could have been made. I mean, 100 years ago, we had Nikola Tesla. We could have been 100 years more advanced. And so I would, you know, it's a knowledge deletion campaign. So this is kind of the hard pill to accept. We are being made to be artificially dumb. If you kind of see what I'm talking about with AI, and you kind of see that part that I mentioned about the macaque neural activity and all that, And then you combine it with what we know in archaeology. What it tells you is that for how far advanced we are in evolution, for how evolved we are, our technology is sticks and stones. Like, we are currently living in the Stone Age. We are too far evolved. Our evolution is way more advanced than our technology is, and not even close. It's like not even remotely close. And archaeology demonstrates this. UAPs demonstrates this. AI demonstrates this. We have multiple vectors of knowing this. And
Joe Rogan always says the opposite. I've heard him say it like 20 times. He says we're in a technological, and I don't believe everything he says or anything, but he says we're in a technological adolescence. Would you, and you're saying,
what does that mean?
Like as in like the adolescent, like, for example, our technology is like, for when you're an adolescent, you're, you don't quite understand your place in the world. You don't quite understand your identity. You don't quite understand like your emotions and things like that. And it's very confusing. So I think that's what he says. Is that similar to what you're saying, or?
No, we are being made artificially dumb. This is the issue with the deception campaign. This is like the whole point of distorting quantum mechanics and destroying Nikola Tesla's work and hiding life in the universe, all of it, and making your academic institutions completely idiotic.
And putting neurotoxins in our water to help our teeth and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, that whole era, the 60s era, where it was thank you for smoking, sugar supporting saturated fats, the polio vaccine, everything.
9 out of 10 doctors smoke Camel.
Yeah, all of the oil think tanks at the time, unleaded gas. I mean, I could keep going and going, man. All of this happened at the same time. Moon doesn't make any sense, guys. 1/4 the size of the Earth, at the perfect distance to make a solar eclipse, and perfectly round, with so many craters that on the side that only faces the Earth, and they only go to a certain depth. There's something wrong about all that. Plus, most of the moons in the world, or in the universe, I mean, look like potatoes.
Yeah, that is very strange. Moo Conduit, thank you for joining the chat. I don't know if you're new to the show, but if you are, welcome. He says, what do you think, and I'm sure this is for you, not me, of plasmoid tech could be for interpreting findings from AI models? And so I don't know anything about plasmoid tech, and I don't quite understand the question.
Yeah, I would need a little bit more explanation. I don't know how to relate the plasmoid tech to the findings from AI.
Yeah, if you could elaborate a little bit, that would be great, and we'd see if Ashish can answer.
So let me give you maybe where I think AI goes. Okay. So let's maybe talk about that a little bit.
Let's do a little futurism here.
Yeah, futurism. Let's do the more hopeful side. So there is such a thing as making bad AI, and this is it's not binary. There's a gradient of possibilities, and this is all based on what choices we make. The AI, here's how to understand AI in the future. The AI will represent who we are as humans.
Yes.
If we are shitty humans, our AI is going to be shitty. If we are good humans, our AI is going to be trained on good humans.
That's what scares me, though, Ashish.
Well, that's why I'm saying that the number one problem is not the AI. You're blaming the gun and not the person using it.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. This is a problem of the deception campaign. We're being made to be artificially dumb, and it's through this deception. They're lying to us nonstop about almost everything you can imagine. I mean, like I said, there have been more discoveries made that have been suppressed than the knowledge that we have exists. That pie is bigger. I need to reiterate that. There are more discoveries made all the time. There used to be this period of time where they were saying that there's nothing left to discover and that we figured everything out. No, we didn't. We're not even close. We're still primitive. And I can also go on a lot of these rants, but the issue here is that one of the advantages that AI is going to provide this world is that we will be able to make the cost of knowledge drop rapidly. And that
it already has.
It already has, and it will continue to do so. Now, we still have this problem with knowledge pollution, but at least if you want to, it is easier today than it was before, and it will continue to be easier to find out base truth, ground truth. And this will help educate the public. And so the number one the number one counter to the knowledge deletion campaign is knowledge. So we need to become an educated species. So like one of the other problems here is just like that island where it had an indigenous species that had been uncontacted by any advanced civilization for a very long time, and then a missionary went over there and he was just basically slaughtered immediately. That's what we're doing to aliens. We're that. That's where we're at right now. We're this indigenous species that looks at any foreign entity as being some sort of threat, and we murder these aliens right away, and that's why they're not here. Not because they don't want to be. I mean, I live in Phoenix. If you've heard of the Phoenix Lights, they tried pretty damn hard to let us know we were here.
Were you there?
I was not in Phoenix at the time. That was in 1997.
Where
so I did not see it. At that time, I've lived in a lot of cities. I've lived in 16 cities. I think I was in Pennsylvania at that time.
Okay. So Moo Conduit's elaborating a little bit. I just don't know anything about plasma physics, but he says, I think there may be a connection between new energy paradigms like those using plasma physics and AI consciousness. And he says, pretty sure it's what they are using to power back engineered UAPs.
Not familiar, so I don't want to comment without really knowing what I'm talking about. But
yeah, if you could send us stuff about the plasmoid tech and UAPs or something like that, we'd definitely look into that.
Yeah.
But this is I feel like you wrap this up in a nice way in that like it's how we look at it and how we treat it, right? Like and then if we look at it in the right way, in an optimistic way, and we treat the AI, I mean, I don't mean treat it because it's not sentient, but we like you said, if we're shitty with it, it's going to be shitty. So
yeah,
and then
you don't even need to worry. Don't even. The AI is not wrong. The AI is math. There's nothing that needs to be fixed in AI. All of the problems are human problems.
Correct.
If the humans are shitty, the AI will be shitty no matter what. We need to fix ourselves.
I like how you said you thinking about it with like the AI is the gun, right?
Yeah, that's the right way to think about it.
That is the right way to think about it. And then also the exponential knowledge, like making knowledge more accessible and cheaper, and like growing our knowledge makes people become more and more aware. So more and more people, like say, saw that episode of the Y-Files and go, "Hey, everything's a fucking psyop," and then that evolution is happening at the same time as the technological evolution, which is why we have hope for the future. And the cool thing about this stuff is that it has the power in the next 25 years or so, if done right, 50 years, to solve most of what we consider as problems, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and here's the thing: it's not like there's going to be one AI. Well, hopefully, I mean, I guess there is a possible universe where there's only one AI, but that would be a horrible one. There should not be a world where it's only one AI. There should be many AIs, all different kinds, all different models, all different sizes, all different layers, all different tasks.
Yeah,
lots of AIs, and that's the reason why you want it that way. Is because this is the forcing function for ensuring good AI happens. You don't even need a law or regulation or anything. What'll end up happening is that good AI will be promoted and used, and shitty AI will not. And
just like everything in the free market.
Just like the free market, everything else. It'll become a competitive process, and that's what you want. And that will be a self-regulating process. You don't need anything because it'll be demonstrated in the market. And there'll be such high demand that'll be a critical factor that everyone considers. Is how good the AI actually is in reality.
Got it. So the last thing I wanted to ask about before we wrap this up, and this might be a can of worms, so if you feel like not going there or just being concise, I understand, because we're pushing 3 hours. That's fucking awesome.
Wow. Cool.
So what is the potential for like AI to, like, in your estimation, what is the potential for AI to develop like a consciousness, or in like a Skynet sort of situation where it doesn't need us, like you said? Like, what is the potential? Like, are we at risk for that in your view, or what?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There are layers to that. So let's just kind of take it from basic and more advanced. So at first, there will be a lot of AIs, like I'm saying, and there will be task specific, but eventually you'll start have neural nets on top of neural nets.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing, just like there's vertical integration in companies, there'll be vertical integration that happens with AI. And that also should not be feared because this is still mostly a system at that point. But and we're already seeing that, and Tesla is a really good example of vertical integration and cross-translating technology, where they're taking the full self-driving technology, copying and pasting it into a robot called Optimus, and it turns out that it cross-translates, which is a crazy thing. It's a nuts thing that happens, but it's very important that happens. But so we're still in the very primitive version of AI, and the only reason that we're looking at AI as being sentient right now is because it's doing stuff that we didn't expect, and we've also been conditioned for a very long time to be really dumb. So understand that that's a real thing, that we are literally being programmed to be dumb. And so that's one of the problems with AI is that AI is
so
easy.
bad.
It's got the lowest bar possible when, to beat. So
everybody's just going, whoa, look at this AI.
Yeah, exactly. And now everything is AI. Yeah, everyone and their mother has AI now. And so when you get to the real heart, like let's now advance the timeline a bit. So what in the future, what we're going to have is we're going to have problems with energy. Hopefully we solve that. So that'll be a huge bottleneck because the training data is going to be pretty massive, and it will need to become increasingly massive. So that's another bottleneck, is that even if you have all the compute, you still need to get all the training data to use that compute. Mm-hmm. And there's also issues with how do you get the training data, who owns the training data, how do you handle all that? Mm-hmm. So there'll be problems with that. I do not believe that privacy is a required trade-off for AI, just to be clear about that. This is not another, this is, I think this is going to become a manufactured narrative where they make you pigeonhole you into this so-called binary situation that isn't binary at all. But no, there's no such thing as requiring privacy to be sacrificed for AI to work. No such thing, no. I think that's a manufactured binary that they're going to make. And there's a lot of incentive behind that, and OpenAI, I think, is also part of the demonstration of that technique being used in the world right now. So AI regulation, you have to really think about the psyop that's happening there, because it's all about enforcing this idea that this is a binary situation.
Yes.
Yeah. In the future, let's say we get past all the energy constraints and all that, we're still in the vacuum tube phase of AI. So we're going to have to make a lot of innovations on compute efficiency. Because just to put things into context here, your human brain is at its max. If you're using every neuron in your brain, you can use it uses about 75 watts of power. And that's way higher than what it normally uses. On average, at any given point, it's probably using something like 15 to 20 watts of power. And now if you've built computers, you know that your power supply in a standard computer is like 500 to 750 watts. And that's a computer, right? So one of the ways to measure this is something I was trying to work on, never got all the way through, but one of the ideas I had, and I'm not able to prove that this is how it works, but this is how I think about it. The way I think about AI is on a compute per energy scale, not on a compute per dollar scale, compute per unit of energy scale. So our brain does a massive amount of compute per unit of energy, and we're not even close to that.
Okay.
So that's an easy way to kind of contextualize, if you need a progress bar, how much energy is being used for the compute, and ratio that. And if you can compare that to the human brain, that should hopefully alleviate your concerns, because we are a universe apart from the efficiency of the brain versus what we have in real life.
Wow. Ashish, I kind of want to trade brains with you for like a day, but like you'd end up, you'd be really good at basketball, I think, and you'd be like emotional and like but I would be able to see all this shit like it, because look, man, I'm a qualitative guy. Humans are my thing. That's why I call this Humans of the Multiverse.
I'm very pro-human, despite being an AI person.
I know you are. I know you are very pro-human. And that's the sort of message of this conversation, is that like humans, it's on us. you know, and your sort of prediction of how like our evolution will have to go will have to go along with the evolution of the technology is obvious if you think about it from 1,000-foot view or whatever, because that's what's happened during the entire evolution of human technology. But
I
it
think
just seems scary.
we're just in the latest version of fearing tech. You know, I remember in the 1990s there was all this criticism and critique about Mortal Kombat. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like that
And
was
then you
gonna
go to the
ruin.
arcade and there'd be like 50 people in a
Yeah,
line trying to play.
and that was a huge thing. And then there was this whole thing about Slim Shady.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's my like childhood. I grew up on Mortal Kombat and Slim Shady, and I guess now I'm a ruined human, is what they were saying would happen to me.
Apparently, yeah.
And so I think we're just continuously in this same dumbification process, and it just keeps getting.
How do we get out of the dumbification process?
AI helps. It makes the cost of knowledge a lot cheaper. No one needs a degree anymore, and at this point the degrees are worthless. I see more. I look at people with PhDs, and most of them, I automatically assume they don't know anything. I've seen literally with my own eyes, and like I know a lot of PhDs, and not all of them, but a lot of. How do I say this? I know PhDs that literally knew their PhD was total BS and was just doing it to get the letters, and that's kind of what the academic institutions are about. They're not about furthering knowledge. Not in reality. In fact, most of the things they work on is about publishing incremental marginal changes that go along with what already exists. And that's how you get your PhD, is making the smallest possible increment you can. It doesn't matter if that increment is useful or not. In fact, the more useless that increment is, the less controversial it will be, and therefore the more practical it is for getting your PhD. So in other words, academia has optimized PhDs, getting a PhD, around making the most useless possible contribution you can. Because if you make a useful contribution, then you have to go through this whole BS of changing the paradigm and getting everyone to change their belief system and all this stuff. And nobody wants to do that. So it's about doing the most uncontroversial thing and making the least amount of progress, literally the least amount of progress as you can. And that's how you get a PhD for the most part. Oh, I lost you.
So no, I was muted. That's super annoying. It's hard. I don't so I have a master's degree in clinical social work. Okay. And I'm aware of how, you know, I'm aware. And also from one of the like leftist, most woke schools in the country, the University of Southern California.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's been my dream to to go for my PhD at the University of Michigan, because they have a dual degree where I can take that social work and get a PhD in social work and also a PhD in anthropology at the same time. And I am I'm like a prime candidate for that program. Like I almost applied twice. They know who I am. I've already been over there and interviewed with them and stuff. But it just makes me like not. Most of that is for my own like internal validation. For example, I had like teachers and shit who just didn't understand me and then like treated me poorly and things like that. And I've always had this like desire to be like, fuck you, Mrs. Bayard. I'm going all the way, right? But like it seems, and this is what we're talking about: social systems, like systems of education and stuff like that. I think a lot of this shit, I don't know exactly what, but that's going to have to adapt in some way. Like you're right. Nobody like, and I'm not pooping on PhDs like all across the board, but you have to.
I am. I'm 100%
to,
shitting on PhDs all over the board.
You have to kiss some ass and go along with whoever's in charge in order to get the PhD, right? You can't just go in there with your own idea and like challenge everything like real science. And that annoys me, you know?
It's not even about challenging real science. They're not doing real science. The PhD has lost all value because, first of all, there's only a very small percentage of PhDs graduated PhDs that actually take what they did in their PhD work and then translate it into the real world. So that's just already a small percentage. And most of you've heard of the phrase "publish or perish." This is what
Publish or perish.
PhD.
Yeah.
This is basically what a PhD is about. You become part of the cog in the university system, and you're supposed to try and generate money for the university. And so you cannot necessarily work on what you want to. You have to publish things that will generate revenue. You have to get published. You have to bring notoriety. You have to bring fame to the university, and you have to manufacture as many papers as possible. There are people out there that have published thousands of papers, literally thousands of papers.
Well, what's funny about that is I saw a guy on Rogan. There's two guys. I can't remember their names. This was a few years ago, but they went like deep on these like academic papers in the social sciences. And like they were they were all quote peer reviewed, and they were so these people were like, they started submitting just ridiculous stuff, and it was getting pushed through without even like it was like, as long as it went along with the ideology,
there you go,
it was fine, you know.
Yep, exactly. As long as it went along with the ideology, didn't even really
it didn't get questioned. It was just like, yep, you're right. And it was some really crazy stuff, like way beyond anything you'd see in the zeitgeist. And these stuff were getting published. So these things, I think, are
that's
all
why the PhD is worthless. Like, don't look at any. I mean, by default, you'll be correct more than not if you just look at a PhD as being an idiot. I'm telling you, this is fact. It's true. Most PhDs do not ever translate anything that they did in their PhD work to the real world.
So I can't even say this actually, so I'm not going to. But Mike, is switching to like he was going for a PhD, and he's changed his mind for a very similar reason. Yes, for very. I don't want to speak for Mike, but he's moving to something else, and my dad's always said to me, like, I want you to get that PhD, son, but I'm not doing anything for my dad. But it makes me think like, because here's the reality is, I just got a job that's I start in a few weeks, that I get to work from home on, and basically set my own hours, help veterans. That's what I do. That's my passion. And I got that through this bullshit, which a degree that I know was bullshit, because every single paper I wrote, which was hundreds of pages over the process, I sat down and wrote in one single sitting, and then just handed it in. And not because I'm brilliant, because the standard was super low. And so the people that were going through that like social work program could barely write. And so all I had to do was write at like a 10th grade level, which I'd been doing since I'm 7 or something. And like, I could get an A on every single thing. And that's the truth about the social sciences. And I was there at the beginning, right? So this, you can think about 2014. So this is like right about the beginning, where like that, you remember, the Evergreen College situation with Brett Weinstein. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So
I heard him talk about it.
That's when it was like this stuff was like happening in a vacuum, and nobody thought it was going to come out into the real world. At that time, every paper I wrote, I had to put a section in there that made my paper somehow relate to DEI. I had to, or I would lose 10 points.
Oh, okay? Wow.
Yeah. And so I just basically...
That was in 2014?
Yeah, Jeez. Correct. And so I basically just copied and pasted the same DEI segment into every single fucking paper. I got an A on everything. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of it, because now I get to help people and do the thing that I'm passionate about. And I've been doing that on and off for the last 15 years or whatever. And I'm happy with that, or 10 years. But like, it's so fascinating to me that within 10 to 15 to even 20 years, the the requirements for like obtaining knowledge are going to be totally different. And how do we validate those? You know, how does one like define an expert now? Like it seems to be all out the window. You know what I mean?
What it's effectively doing is it's gatekeeping good jobs behind a money wall, a paywall.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw it at ASU too, because
Yeah.
I was at ASU when COVID was happening, and at that time, ChatGPT had just come out, and the cheating was just rampant all over the place. I mean, there were people that were in my master's class that didn't even belong in the bachelor's. Like it was like a pretty nuts kind of how bad it was.
There's
Yeah,
this
and people are
guy.
just getting this piece of paper, they're paying the money for it, and they're not doing anything. And then they curve like 30-40% curves on the grade. So if you had a D and suddenly have an A or whatever, I mean, it's like ridiculous what happens in school right now. And it was a total joke. No one, it's not merit based at all. That's for sure.
No, it's
It has
definitely
nothing.
not.
It has nothing to do with merit. And what kind of the kind of harm that it generates is that it makes it so that if you cannot afford to pay the paywall, you cannot get a good job. And it has nothing to do about learning how to do the job. Also in my finance degree, like other than terminology and some basics, like I could have learned everything that I needed to learn. Or I'm sorry, I could have learned everything that I got out of my finance degree in actually 1 year. I don't know why I had to go to school for 4 years to learn that. And then it turns out that very little of it, I mean, I used some of it, but not much. Other than the terminology, I had to learn everything on the job. And the same was true in AI. I was literally teaching the professors how computer vision works because they weren't even looking at it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I could say the same thing about like everything that I do now, as far as like, you know, talking with and developing rapport with veterans who don't trust anything or the system and have severe PTSD and things like that. And how I talk to them and how I develop that rapport and that relationship where I can, you know, introduce them to some things that would be helpful to their mental and physical health and things like that. It's a whole thing. I could have done that before going to school. I didn't need to go to school. What the school taught me how to do was do it within the confines of the insurance system. Okay. So how do you be a social worker without getting fucked by insurance companies? That's it.
Wow.
Okay. And so
that's
the most important thing I learned. It's like, you know, you got to write that note a certain way so that the insurance company thinks you're being a social worker the way they define a social worker, right?
Yeah.
And it's what's nice is I just got a job with a wonderful new company that I'm going to introduce in a few weeks after I onboard with them and stuff like that. I'm going to bring the head of the company. It's a nonprofit. He's a former Green Beret, great guy. He's going to come on the show, talk about the company. But the point is like now, because of technology and because of AI and things like that, I'm able to be uber efficient at home in a job where I'm like now coaching a basketball team. I'm going to have a job. I'm running a podcast, and I'm able to do this all by at my house.
Yeah.
It's insane. And so I'm happy with how things are going right now. I'm just concerned with like who's going to have control of this stuff going forward. But you made me feel way better by telling me that like it's true. Even that episode of the Y-Files like opened up a bunch of people's minds. You know what I mean? And so that's good. We're at 3:16, and I really wanted to ask one last thing, but I don't think we have time for it. It's just let's do it another time. But I just wanted to ask you about like 3i Atlas, and have you looked into this at all? But we'll talk about it a different time.
Sure. Yeah.
Ashish, dude, you are one of the most mind-blowing guys I know. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think you just set the record. Maybe Ricardo still owns it. But 3 hours and 16 minutes. You must talk to Ricardo and Shaman on the philosopher. I'm going to set that up if that's okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
You must tell them about this this AI stuff.
Sure.
Everything that you did with me, that would be fantastic.
Sure.
Tammy, thank you so much for hanging in there. She says, "Congrats on the job, Dave." Thank you.
Yeah.
I stopped working a couple years ago because of back pain and because of the insurance system, and I was like, "This is fucking bullshit." And then this one actually like came to me organically through like my friend Walt, who's been on the show as well. And he introduced me to this lady who lives here, and it's just happened to be the perfect fucking fit.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited.
One of the things that happened to me after ASU is I got blacklisted, and I used to be able to get any job I wanted.
Yeah,
and now I've applied to more than
fuck.
200. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, but I mean, it just sucks because I've applied to more than 200 jobs and I haven't even gotten an interview. Whereas before I'd apply to any job and I'd get at least an interview to almost every single one of them. And it's been like 2 or 3 years. So I've had to figure out my whole life, on my own because of this dumb shit. And yeah, it's pretty bad, especially because I'm a nobody and they're willing to do like the amount of assets. I was surprised how many assets they deployed. So I mean, that's a whole other thing. But like, if they're what I wanted to say that just because I'm curious how many other people they've done this to. And I hope because you have a platform, I hope you find other people in academia that have been suppressed, because I'm sure this is a huge number of people. I'm like 100% certain that there's a huge number of people that have found a lot of things that are being suppressed in academia.
Hey, anyone want to come on my show and talk about some legit research that you got that got canned because you were not towing the line? That's what this show is for. Mostly, like we mostly talk about ancient history. It happens in that world a lot, and because that world is super subjective, and it's like you literally need a time machine to make these kinds of conclusions that these people try to make. It happens in virtually every arena. So I'm really excited to see you in Arizona, man.
Yeah, December 5th.
That's how long? That's like 12 days or something.
Oh yeah, hopefully I fix my jet lag by then.
Yeah. Well, we got all these speakers. Mike and I are going to be emceeing on Friday night. We've got an after party basically set up at every single night, but I'm probably only going to go on Sunday. I don't want to stay up late and try to watch presentations the next day. But I'm just throwing this out there. We are going on a spirit journey on Monday. If you'd like to come with us,
sure,
you're invited.
Absolutely.
We have a couple of good shamans, and if you know any places actually in the area, like deserty and not too far away, that would be a good place to do that. Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I got nothing better to do.
Yeah, fuck it, right?
Yeah.
And then you just got back from Thailand. You're going where with Praveen next?
So officially I'm going to Cambodia with him in March. But I might go to India with him. We'll see. Some plans are working out, and then it looks like he's also working out a trip to Egypt, and I might be doing that one too. And so yeah, I got a few things in the works. Oh, the only one that I'm confirmed on is Cambodia, but I'm working out on the other stuff. Yeah.
Eventually I'd like to. So Praveen is like my fave. Besides like the goats, like Graham and all that stuff, but I've watched every single Praveen video, and so I every time I've tried to talk to him at Cosmic Summit, I'm such a big fan that I'm like, blah, 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 and I say something stupid. But I really would like to spend some time with him because he seems like a really genuine.
Oh man, he's a genuine guy. Yeah. This dude is so easy to talk to. He's nice to everyone. He gives everyone a personal touch. Everyone. I hope Praveen goes on Joe Rogan. I've been trying to convince him to go on Joe Rogan.
I 100%. Look, he's got the shit he shows on his channel. Nobody else is showing.
Nobody.
Not in the context that he does.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, he deserves to be on Joe Rogan. If there's anyone that knows how to get him onto Joe Rogan, please make that happen. He deserves it.
For the love of God, yeah. But so after those next few trips, we'll bring you back on and see what you've come up with for your where you're at with your pyramid theory. Sound good?
Sure, absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay, man. Hey, it was wonderful talking to you. It's one of my favorite episodes of all time. I'm gonna hit some outro music.
Sure.
We've got I just want to say hi to everyone in the chat. Tammy, where's my music? Captions, graphics. I don't have any music. Oh well, I usually hit outro music. Tammy, Moo. We've got a Glitchy. He was in here. Thank you for joining. I just love everyone in the chat. It really makes my day, and so thank you very much. Keep tuning in. We got a great episode with Michael Arbuthnot coming out. Dove on the Titanic with James Cameron coming out on Friday. I said that was one of my favorite. I fucking love this job, and I barely get paid to do anything. So, Ashish, we'll see you in a couple weeks.